Chapter 342. False Nascent Soul. Similar to the false nascent soul formed in Wuqi's Dantian, it was a heaven-stealing technique found in Scroll of Stealing to deceive others. Using White Cloud Immortal Sex Energy Unity Mystic Technique as the foundation, it absorbed an enormous amount of natural energy, filled the golden core with Immortal Chang Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, and formed a nascent soul with the mystic technique. This nascent soul contained all of Immortal Chang Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, which was at the level of a heaven immortal. As long as Wuqi could thoroughly comprehend all the enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, he would be able to push his cultivation base to the realm of heaven immortal with the help of this false nascent soul. However, this false nascent soul was just a false nascent soul. Instead of saying it was Wuqi's nascent soul, it was more like a strange magical treasure that looked like a nascent soul, and had the same functions as a nascent soul. It possessed all the functions of a nascent soul, but the one controlling it was just a thread of Wuqi's divine sense. Even if the false nascent soul was destroyed one day, Wuqi would only lose a thread of his divine sense, and it would not cause any harm to his true form. An enormous amount of natural energy was still rushing into Wuqi's body. Wuqi sat cross-legged. The heavenly wit fruit had improved his intelligence and the ability to comprehend the heavenly Tao to an incredible level. Together with the various magical techniques described in Scroll of Stealing, in just a few hours, Wuqi had comprehended all the magical principles of heaven and earth recorded in Immortal Chang Wu's heavenly Tao epigraphs to the limit of peak stage nascent soul realm. During this process, the nascent soul in Wuqi's body grew and enlarged at an incredible speed, constantly absorbing the natural energy from the outside and quickly reaching the level of peak stage nascent soul realm. An enormous amount of energy kept bursting out from the silvery bright false nascent soul, flowing quickly through the main meridians in Wuqi's body. Wuqi focused his mind, and countless razor-sharp silver gleams appeared around him, slicing the surrounding rock walls and sending rocks and dirt flying in all directions. With a cold snort, Wuqi used the divine flame of order to completely refine Immortal Chang Wu's immortal soul, refining it into 360 fist-sized, purple-green soul pearls. He swallowed a soul bead and a pure and powerful strand of soul origin energy rapidly surged into his sea of consciousness. It was absorbed by his soul bit by bit, allowing his soul to gradually grow and strengthen. Marvelous! Chuckling lightly, Wuqi took out Vagabond Qing Yi. It would also refine him. His flesh and blood essence turned into golden blood crystals, and his immortal soul turned into purple-green soul beads. Vagabond Qing Yi's cultivation base was clearly much stronger than Immortal Chang Wu. He had over 400 blood crystals, and a total of 570 soul pearls. Vagabond Qing Yi primarily cultivated the greenwood technique, and he also cultivated the breeze spell that was derived from the greenwood technique. Inside his immortal soul were 123 light green heavenly Tao epigraphs. Wuqi's fake nascent soul continued to devour the heavenly Tao epigraph. His fake nascent soul quickly turned into a half-silver and half-green color. Another round of crazily inhaling and exhaling energies. Wuqi's fake nascent soul had reached the limit of his innate nascent embryo, gradually forcing it to go through some strange changes. Last was Immortal Xianyang. Among the three of them, Immortal Xianyang had the strongest cultivation base. 600 blood crystals and 800 soul pearls. This was a harvest that stunned even Wuqi. It was especially so when Immortal Xianyang had a total of 358 heavenly Tao epigraphs in his immortal soul, indicating that his understanding of flame had reached an extremely profound level. Wuqi even suspected that Immortal Xianyang was about to break through the realm of 36th tier heaven immortal. After devouring Immortal Xianyang's heavenly Tao epigraphs, the fake nascent soul abruptly burst out with a dazzling red gleam. The silver, green, and red gleam swirled around the fake nascent soul for a moment. Every time Wuqi breathed, the fake nascent soul would breathe, and every time Wuqi exhaled, the fake nascent soul would exhale as well. Between each breath, pure three-colored energies kept rushing out from the fake nascent soul, filling all the main meridians and acupoints in Wuqi's body. 5 acquired spirit pearls flew out and circled around the fake nascent soul. Among them, the gold, green, and fire element acquired spirit pearls were glinting brilliantly, resonating with a clump of green, silver, and red runes that were tangled together in the fake nascent soul's belly. Every time the 5 acquired spirit pearls circled around, a tiny thread of the heavenly Tao would fuse with Wu Qi's nascent divinity, and Wu Qi would feel that the degree of compatibility between him and the surrounding natural energies had improved. What surprised Wu Qi the most was that he managed to separate a tiny thread of pale golden bloodline from immortal Xian Yang's blood essence. It was as thin as a strand of hair, several feet long, and its entire body was pale golden in color. It was a bloodline that even the divine flame of order could not refine. Obviously, it was the innate bloodline of some divine beast with fire element. Wu Qi sensed the ancient and desolate aura emanating from the bloodline. Based on his preliminary judgment, it might be the bloodline of a divine bird with fire element, such as the phoenix or a swan. It was no wonder that when immortal Xian Yang was chasing after Wu Qi that day, he suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood and had a pair of flaming wings sprouted from his back. This fellow was a heaven immortal who had cultivated himself from a demon bird, and he also possessed a tiny thread of divine bird's bloodline. Using a mystic technique, he forced out a tiny thread of innate divine ability from his bloodline, allowing him to catch up with Wu Qi in just a blink of an eye. Holding the tiny thread of bloodline in his hand, Wu Qi pondered for a brief moment, then sorted out all the things left behind by the 3 heaven immortals. After letting the earth element dragon scale shield and 18 celestial fiend puppets devour immortal Xian Yang's immortal item, the wheel of fire, only then did he release the 3 demon sinecures of great Zhao from the spirit breeding ring. Taking the opportunity when the 3 demon sinecures were knocked unconscious by the drunken dragon incense, Wu Qi broke their nascent divinity and left behind a tiny restrictive spell in their nascent divinity, firmly controlling their life and death. After placing a tiny restrictive spell on them and making sure that he had complete control over their life and death, Wu Qi took out the antidote and woke them up. Upon opening their eyes, the 3 demon cultivators let out a furious roar and sprung to their feet, getting ready to strike. Wu Qi smiled faintly and flicked his finger. The 3 demon cultivators let out a miserable howl, as a black gleam flashed across their nascent divinity. It was as if their nascent divinity were struck by a thunderbolt, causing them to twitch and fall to the ground with cold sweat oozing out from their bodies. 3 mighty nascent divinity demon cultivators were tormented by Wu Qi to the point where they could neither live nor die. Holding their heads in their hands, they kept rolling on the ground while letting out miserable howls and howls. Wu Qi looked coldly at the 3 sinecures of Great Zhao, who were struggling and howling miserably on the ground, crying and wailing and nearly dying from the pain, yet they could not even fall unconscious. He sat cross-legged on the ground, wearing a cold face and letting them howl and howl miserably for a full 15 minutes. Only then did he slowly retract the restrictive spell. With that, the severe pain in their nascent divinity was gone, but they still howled and howled miserably for quite a while. Finally, they fell limply to the ground and panted heavily, staring at Wu Qi as if they had just seen a ghost. With a faint smile on his face, Wu Qi said in a deep voice, "From today onwards, the 3 of you are my men." Glancing at the 3 of them, Wu Qi chuckled and said, "If you are not convinced, you can commit suicide. But remember, you must destroy your nascent divinity, leaving not even a trace of your true spirit behind. Otherwise, the pain you have just experienced will be 1,000 times worse. If you don't want to commit suicide, it's very simple. You just have to listen to me and obey me. When you become heaven immortals. No, when you become gold immortals, I'll remove the restrictive spell in your nascent divinity." The 3 demon cultivators exchanged glances, not saying a word. Removing the restrictive spell in their nascent divinity after they became gold immortals. How long would that take? Those with insufficient aptitude would never be able to cultivate to the realm of gold immortals for the rest of their lives. Could it be that they would be restrained by him for the rest of their lives? Before the 3 of them could recover from their shock, Wu Qi snorted coldly and activated the restrictive spell again. Once again, the 3 of them were rolling and howling miserably on the ground. This time, 18 celestial fiend puppets rushed forward at the same time, with 6 of them serving each of them. Punches and kicks rained down on the 3 of them like raindrops, beating them to their heart's content. These celestial fiend puppets did not have bodies of flesh and blood, and they were cultivating the celestial fiend cultivation technique. Each of their punches was as heavy as Mount Tai. Although the three demon cultivators only had the cultivation base of nascent divinity, their skin and flesh were still torn and their bones broken. The pain of having their nascent divinity incinerated on the inside, and the pain of having their flesh and bones broken on the outside. After a round of tempering, the three demon cultivators knelt down on the ground, crying and wailing, and bowed their once proud and unruly heads in resignation. Wu Qi sized them up coldly for a while, then cried out coldly, "Come with me. From now on, you will still be Great Zhao's sinecures, and you can do whatever you want. But, if there is any news related to Great Yan, you just have to inform me." The three demon kings who were forcibly subdued by Wu Qi answered helplessly. They were True Lord Windbreaking, Green Shadow, the Demon of Green Eagle, and Supremacy 5 Mountains, the Demon of Gopher. All of them were demon kings who lived deep in the mountains and forests of Great Zhao, ferocious old demons who had lived for many years, and nascent divinity cultivators with formidable cultivation bases. After undoing the soundproof restrictive spell at the entrance of the cave abode, Wu Qi brought the three demon cultivators, whose faces were livid with rage and drenched in cold sweat, into the water cave outside. Wearing a smile on his face, Zhao Kuo was still cutting Ma He and the other two men. All three of them had been cut to the bone, but no one knew what method Zhao Kuo had used to control them. Although their skin and flesh were cut clean, they were still alive. Ma He was still cursing Zhao Kuo with a stutter, and cursing his ancestors. "How could we be defeated by your torture? How could we betray our master?" Wu Qi could not help but shake his head as he looked at Ma He, who was still persisting in this situation. Then, he said coldly, "If he still refuses to confess, we have no choice but to extract his soul and read through his memories. I hope this fellow's soul is a little stronger, so we can torture him for a little longer. I also hope there are no restrictive spells in his soul, or else, it will be a big problem." Before he could finish his words, Yan Xiaoqi suddenly let out a hoarse scream, "No, no more. I'll tell you. We're sent by Master Feng. Feng Qianli, Master Feng. He asked us to come to Shui Yuan planet. It's Master Feng, Master Feng." With all the skin and flesh on his face scraped off, Ma He turned his head around with great effort, glaring furiously at Yan Xiaoqi, who was being pressed under the long bow men and being whipped endlessly. He shouted sternly, "Little Seven, are you crazy? How could you betray your master? You. Right when Ma He was cursing loudly, Wu Qi pointed his finger at Ma He's forehead. A plume of dark smoke sprayed out from his fingers, pulling Ma He's soul out from his body. Countless black talismans rushed into Ma He's soul. Abruptly, a jade-colored gleam flashed across his soul, and with a loud boom, his soul exploded into pieces. Although Wu Qi was fast, he could only grab a tiny fragment of Ma He's soul and read through a little bit of his memory. Damn it, there really is a restrictive spell in their souls. Wu Qi cursed furiously. However, the little bit of memory he obtained was more than enough for Wu Qi to use. It was Ma He's childhood memory. When he was 3 years old, he was taken in as a disciple by Feng Qianli, the teacher of Yu Academy, and when he was 6 years old, Feng Qianli sent him to the imperial palace. He is indeed Feng Qianli's disciple. Wu Qi turned to look at Yan Qijuan and asked, "Is Feng Qianli very famous?" Yan Qijuan opened his mouth and said with a dry voice, "He is, the teacher of Great Yan imperial clan. Since 150 years ago, he has been the first master of Great Yan imperial clan. He has always had a very good relationship with Great Yan imperial clan." Wu Qi nodded his head, then pulled out the souls of the other two men as well. Just when he was about to interrogate them with a mystic technique, the cave suddenly trembled violently. Crash! All the primordial runes constructed by Wu Qi shattered at the same time. Chapter 343. On the Spirit Cloud Peak of White Cloud Planet. The Spirit Cloud Peak towered above the boundless ocean of clouds. On the precipitous cliff, large patches of pine trees and wisterias grew freely, extending and absorbing the rain, dew, and sunlight. Strong gusts of wind blew through these pine trees, bringing up large patches of rainbows on the peak. Princess Xianglu was sitting on the trunk of an ancient pine tree. Her skirt was filled with pine nuts, and she was peeling them off one by one and eating them. A few colorful sparrows were flying around her, and from time to time, they would snatch 2 pine nuts from her fingertips and eat them. The ancient pine tree was deeply rooted on the cliff, reaching over 70 to 80 feet out of the cliff. Princess Xianglu was sitting on the trunk. Thousands of feet away from her feet was the surging ocean of clouds, a bottomless abyss. A large amount of natural energies kept surging into Princess Xianglu's body. She did not deliberately cultivate herself, but just sat on the trunk, eating pine nuts and having fun. The natural energies quickly surged into her body, transforming into her power and energy. It would take an ordinary person a few months to achieve a cultivation base, but she just sat on the trunk, enjoying the scenery and eating pine nuts, and her cultivation base would improve by itself. She did not have to worry about it at all. Sitting on the tree trunk, Princess Xianglu looked at the boundless white clouds rolling and rocking in the sky. Suddenly, she stretched her back and breathed out a long sigh. Gently swinging her legs, Princess Xianglu tilted her head and looked at a flock of white cranes that had just soared into the sky from under the ocean of clouds. A 5-colored light suddenly flashed in her eyes, and the natural energies surged into her body at a much faster speed. Giggling, Princess Xianglu grabbed a handful of pine nuts and threw them down into the ocean of clouds. She said happily, "Heavenly wit fruit. Not bad, very delicious. The effect is not bad." Princess Xianglu was in a very good mood. She was humming a little tune as a 5-colored divine gleam kept flashing in her eyes. Gradually, her body became hazy, like an old photo that was embedded in a frosted glass, blurred and hard to see clearly. While throwing pine nuts and looking at the scenery, Princess Xianglu suddenly entered the state of Tao enlightenment that all cultivators dreamed of. Once an ordinary cultivator entered the state of Tao enlightenment, he or she would obtain the essence of the great Tao in a short period of time, which was equivalent to what he or she would obtain in dozens of years. However, without hundreds of years of arduous cultivation, without taking a bath and fasting, and entering a secluded cultivation, ordinary cultivators were not qualified to enter the state of Tao enlightenment. However, Princess Xianglu entered this mysterious and unpredictable state so easily, as if she was just playing around. If there were any other cultivators present, and they saw how easily Princess Xianglu entered the state of enlightenment as if she was eating pine nuts, perhaps they would vomit blood with anger, and their eyes would turn green with envy. When Princess Xianglu entered the state of enlightenment and communicated with the mysterious and unfathomable heavenly Tao, she was still singing, humming an unknown folk song. Along with the gentle singing, the surrounding natural energies rolled and swirled around Princess Xianglu, transforming into an extremely dense energy ball with a diameter of several tens of feet. A few little sparrows who were flying around Princess Xianglu were chirping happily, while the dense natural energies in the surroundings were pouring into their bodies. Instinctively, these little sparrows sensed that such a thing would bring them great benefits. Therefore, they chirped excitedly and flew even more vigorously around Princess Xianglu. Faintly, a 5-colored light shone out of the energy ball, and the wind and clouds around Spirit Cloud Peak began to change. Dark clouds slowly pressed down from the sky, covering an area of over 100 miles in circumference, and were about to collide with the ocean of white clouds down below. All of a sudden, countless finger-thick silver lightning bolts struck down from the dark clouds, shattering the white clouds down below and exposing the mountains, rivers, towns, and villages in a very distant place. Hee hee. An hour later, the dark clouds dispersed, and the lightning bolts vanished without a trace. The energy ball around Princess Xianglu suddenly disintegrated, revealing Princess Xianglu, whose skin seemed to have become much smoother and smoother. A 5-colored divine light flashed across the spot between her eyebrows, following which, a fist-sized nascent soul that looked exactly the same as Princess Xianglu sprung out from between her eyebrows, its body glowing with a 5-colored light. The nascent soul flew around Princess Xianglu for a while, then disappeared into the top of her head. Princess Zhanglu tilted her head and pondered for a while, then happily nodded her head and said with a smile, peak stage nascent soul realm? I think so, right? As long as I can form my nascent soul, I can live forever and be young forever. Wonderful. Zi Xian doesn't want to be a withered old woman. Twitching her lips and making a funny face, Princess Zhanglu broke a few pine nuts and fed them to the little sparrow who was flying around her. After that, a complacent smile appeared on her face. Along with the gentle breeze, her bell-like laughter spread far and wide, scaring a group of white monkeys who were looking for fruits among pine nuts on a cliff several thousand feet away. They nearly lost their footing and fell off the cliff. The group of monkeys flew into a rage out of humiliation, baring their teeth and roaring at Princess Zhanglu. After that, they quickly grabbed the pine nuts and ran far away. Suddenly, a sword beam shot down from the spirit cloud peak. Standing on the sword beam, Bai Zhuer cried out anxiously, "Your Highness, someone is coming from Star-Picking City." Princess Zhanglu was stunned for a moment, then she immediately transformed into a five-colored light beam and soared into the sky, wrapping Bai Zhuer up and flying towards the top of the spirit cloud peak. The light only flickered faintly, and in the next moment, Princess Zhanglu and Bai Zhuer had arrived at the top of the peak, landing on a flat dam surrounded by pine nuts, bamboos, and plum blossoms. On this flat dam, which was only about 1 acre in size, were 7 to 8 small thatched cottages, surrounded by pine nuts, bamboos, and plum blossoms. A few female Taoists clad in green outfits were reciting some Taoist scriptures outside one of the cottages. When they saw Princess Zhanglu flying down, they quickly rose to their feet and greeted her as ancestral master with the utmost respect. Princess Zhanglu waved her hand. Her eyes darted left and right as she shouted, "Bai Zhuer, where are they? Who is coming from Star-Picking City?" 3 young ladies clad in green outfits and dark green cloaks on their backs, embroidered with patterns of swallows and clouds, came up to Princess Zhanglu. They knelt down on one knee before Princess Zhanglu and said softly, "Greetings, Your Highness." "Long live Your Highness." Princess Zhanglu gave them a look, nodded and said, "Yan Xiaosan, Yan Xiaowu, and Yan Xiaojiu, why are you here? What is it that you can't let your subordinates handle? Why are you, the 3 of you, the team officers, here?" Yan Xiaosan, Yan Xiaowu, and Yan Xiaojiu were one of the 10 team officers among the 3,000 team officers in Star-Picking City. Each of them managed 300 team officers, and in Star-Picking City, they were in charge of all the important departments. Therefore, Princess Zhanglu found it strange that they had to come here personally. Moreover, now that they had left Star-Picking City, what about the affairs they were in charge of? The 3 of them rose to their feet. Then Yan Xiaosan said with a deep voice, "Your Highness, we have received a secret decree from His Majesty. The Crown Prince has been attacked in Shui Yuan planet, and is severely wounded. His Majesty wants Your Highness to hurry to Dark Radiance planet, where you, together with eunuch Ma Yi, will bring some men to rescue the Crown Prince. This is an emergency, so Your Highness, please depart at once." After that, Yan Xiaosan flipped her palm, and a pale green scroll and a green jade medallion appeared in her palm. Princess Zhanglu gave Yan Xiaosan a surprised look. She took over the scroll and unfurled it. It was an imperial decree, and judging from the handwriting and seal, it was indeed written by Yan Dan. On top of that, the seal was the national seal of Great Yan Dynasty, and the jade medallion was the seal of Great Yan Dynasty. On the other hand, the jade medallion was the forbidden medallion of Great Yan Dynasty's imperial palace. Only when someone was sent to carry out an important mission related to the imperial clan would they release this medallion. Both the imperial decree and the medallion were here. Princess Zhanglu frowned, stared at Yan Xiaosan, and said coldly, "You want me to meet eunuch Ma Yi in Dark Radiance planet? Is there any news about Duke Tianyun?" Yan Xiaosan bowed her head respectfully and said, "Imperial Advisor Xiong has sent us a message using a mystic technique. Duke Tianyun has met up with the Crown Prince on Shui Yuan planet. However, the enemy is very strong, and Duke Tianyun is severely wounded as well. After a moment of silence, Yan Xiaosan said carefully in a low voice, in order to rescue the crown prince, Duke Tianyun was besieged by 7 earth immortals of nascent soul realm. Jin Dan is severely wounded, and I'm afraid he will lose his cultivation base. Ugh! 7 earth immortals of nascent soul realm? Princess Zhang Lu looked at Yan Xiaosan curiously. Yan Xiaosan bowed slightly and said, yes. The news sent by Imperial Advisor Xiong. Before Yan Xiaosan could finish her words, Princess Zhang Lu had already given her a heavy slap on the face. Half of her face was badly mutilated, and even her cheekbone was dented by the slap. The slap was fast and heavy. Although Yan Xiaosan's face was badly mutilated, her neck and body did not move at all. All the force landed on her face, shooting out together with her broken bones and flesh. The slap stunned Yan Xiaosan. Her face went numb, and she could not even feel the pain. Standing next to her, Yan Xiaowu and Yan Xiaojiu reacted very quickly. They gave a loud cry together, and suddenly, 2 white beams darted out from their sleeves, piercing through the air and flying towards Princess Zhang Lu. A bright gleam flickered in Princess Zhang Li's eyes. She saw that the white beams were actually ropes as thick as a thumb, densely covered with dark runes and runes. When the white beams were still a few feet away from Princess Zhang Lu, a cold, yin energy had already tightly locked her body. Sneering mockingly, a 5-colored ray suddenly emerged behind Princess Zhang Li's back. The originally hazy and fleeting 5-colored ray converged inwardly, transforming into 5 sword beams that swept out horizontally. She exercised her innate divine ability with the unity of sword energy script, and the 5-colored sword beams condensed into a nearly tangible flying sword. Right when the white ropes collided with the 5 sword beams, they were immediately ripped into pieces. Bai Zhuer and Bai Zuer cried out in alarm. They struck out at the same time, thrusting 2 sword beams towards Yan Xiaowu and Yan Xiaojiu. Suddenly, a chilly wind towered up into the sky from one of the thatched cottages. Tens of hazy ghost shadows darted out from the wind, and in just a blink of an eye, they had arrived before Yan Xiaosan and her companions. When Bai Zhuer and Bai Zuer's sword beams had flown less than 3 feet away, the tens of ghost immortals who had been protecting Princess Zhang Lu had already tightly restrained Yan Xiaosan and her companions. A few cracking noises rang out, as the knees of all 3 of them were broken by the kicks. They fell heavily to their knees and howled miserably with pain. Princess Zhang Lu snorted coldly. She retracted the sword beams, waved her little hands and gave the 3 kneeling men a series of violent slaps. After Yan Xiaosan and her companions were beaten beyond recognition and fainted, Princess Zhang Li's brows twitched. Grinning coldly, she said, "Send a letter to senior sister Jiang Xian and senior sister Jiang Rui, asking them to accompany me back to Star-Picking City." "Humph, how dare you imitate the secret decree personally written by my imperial grandfather? Too bad, you've made a mistake. In the letters and decrees that imperial grandfather sends to my father and me, he only uses his personal seal, and never the national seal. A bunch of fools." 2 rune beams shot out from Spirit Cloud Peak. Before long, Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, 2 early-stage nascent divinity female cultivators who served White Cloud Immortal by Xia, arrived on White Clouds. Princess Zhang Lu gladly cupped her fist and bowed to both her senior sisters, then said obediently, "Senior sisters, please accompany me back to Myriad Immortals' planet. Some people in Star-Picking City need to be cleaned up." 15 minutes later, Princess Zhang Lu returned to Star-Picking City together with a large group of people, including several hundred cultivators from White Cloud Immortal sect. Chapter 344. Star-Picking City was surrounded by water on 3 sides, and it was a vast expanse of water. Countless fishes, shrimps, and demon beasts could be seen in broad daylight. Often, groups of aquatic demons and sea monsters could be seen leaping from the ocean to the shore, wandering around. There were even large groups of demons and ghosts who wandered around Star-Picking City, just like how ordinary people would go shopping. However, no matter it was the residents of the city, or the merchants who came from afar, none of them were surprised by these demons and ghosts. They all knew that the owner of star-picking city, Great Yan's Duke of Tianyun, Wu Qi, was a good friend of the two dragon kings who lived in the ocean. As these demons and ghosts were the subordinates of the two dragon kings, they would never stir up any trouble in star-picking city. On the contrary, with the patronage of these demons and ghosts, star-picking city had attracted more powerful merchants. As these demons and ghosts could dive deep into the ocean, they were able to find many rare and precious treasures that no human cultivators could find. Once these demons and ghosts found something valuable, or something they could not identify, they would excitedly come to star-picking city to sell. These rare and precious treasures were paid with energy stones. With energy stones, these demons and ghosts could exchange them for all kinds of flying swords, magical items, talismans, and spirit pills in star-picking pavilion. As for these items, these low-grade little demons and ghosts could never even dream of getting so many excellent items crafted by human cultivators. Therefore, they were motivated to search the surrounding ocean, collecting countless precious treasures and sending them back to star-picking city. Because of these precious treasures produced from the ocean, star-picking city was constantly visited by merchants. Even the merchants from the other few kingdoms had gradually come to star-picking city to purchase all kinds of rare and precious items. Compared to 3 years ago, when it was just built, star-picking city was now densely populated, and vaguely, it had the appearance of a large metropolis. On the other hand, Great Yan dynasty was constantly sending the people requested by Wu Qi to this place. To the north of star-picking city, more cities, towns, and villages were being built. A strong light flashed on a long-distance teleportation formation in star-picking city, as Princess Zhanglu walked out from it together with a large group of people. The teleportation formation was specially constructed for the top management of star-picking city, and it connected star-picking city with all the other major cities of Great Yan. It was located right in the heart of the city lord mansion. The moment Princess Zhanglu walked out, several cultivators standing guard near the teleportation array rushed forward to greet her. They bowed respectfully towards Princess Zhanglu. Gently waving her hand, Princess Zhanglu said with a deep voice, "Where is Lu Ziyuan? Call him over." In less than the time it took to brew a pot of tea, Lu Ziyuan rushed over with a few of his subordinates. When he saw Princess Zhanglu from afar, Lu Ziyuan bowed respectfully and said with a smile, "Welcome, Princess. Please forgive me for not welcoming you earlier." Princess Zhanglu raised her eyebrows and sneered, "Welcome from afar. Where are you going to welcome him? Use your name to gather all the female officials and eunuchs in the city. In short, gather all the men I brought from the imperial palace, and ask them to gather in the drill ground in the city lord mansion." Lu Ziyuan answered, then quickly gave a glance at Yan Shaosan and her two companions, who were standing behind Princess Zhanglu, being restrained by a few burly disciples of White Cloud Immortal Sect. Then, he spun and rushed out of the drill ground. Lu Ziyuan's eyes darted back and forth, his brows knitted into a tight frown as he quickened his pace. These female officials were the elites secretly trained by Great Yan Imperial Clan, the elites who served the members of the Imperial Clan. On top of that, Yan Shaosan and her two companions were the leaders of the female officials. They held a high position and held great power in star-picking city. Obviously, Princess Zhanglu had escorted them here, and from the looks of it, she had already given them a round of torture. What had actually happened? Although his mind was filled with countless thoughts, Lu Ziyuan did not waste any time and rushed to the main hall of the city lord mansion, where all the city affairs were handled. Hastily, he ordered his subordinates to ring the golden bell and jade drum, which were used to summon all the officials in the city. When all the officials in star-picking city heard the sound of the golden bell and jade drum, they all rushed to the mayor's mansion. After Lu Ziyuan came up with a series of excuses, all 3,000 lady officials and 1,000 imperial eunuchs gathered at the drill ground next to the back garden of the mayor's mansion. After doing a head count, Lu Ziyuan hastily came before Princess Zhanglu, who was standing on the observation platform. He bowed and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, I've done a quick check. Apart from Yan Shaosan, Yan Xiaowu, and Yan Xiaojiu, Yan Xiaoqi and 2 others who are not here, all the other lady officers are here. 1,000 imperial eunuchs, Not a single one is missing. Princess Xianglu answered softly, then slowly rose to her feet and walked to the edge of the reviewing platform, looking down at the thousands of lady officials and eunuchs standing below. From left to right, Princess Xianglu glanced at these female officials and eunuchs, then with a deep voice, she shouted, "Some of you should know the reason why I suddenly came back to the city. I don't want to waste my time. Those who are Yan Xiaosan and the other two's accomplices, step out now. I'll only kill you and spare your family." Pausing for a while, Princess Xianglu sneered and said, "If you refuse to surrender, and I find out who you are, don't blame me for being merciless. I'll definitely kill every single one of your family members. Think about your own family members, don't drag them into this mess." The whole place fell into a dead silence. No one made a sound. Princess Zhang Li's face immediately turned unsightly. She sneered and said, "Fine, you refuse to come out. Hee, you guys are really bold. How dare you forge an imperial edict, trying to fool me into going to Dark Radiance planet. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rebel?" With a backhand slap on Yan Xiaosan's face, Princess Xianglu snapped, "Yan Xiaosan, tell me, who is your accomplice?" Yan Xiaosan, whose cheekbone was broken, coughed out a mouthful of blood. She gave Princess Xianglu a look, then suddenly dropped to her knees on the observation platform. With a hoarse voice, she cried out, "Your Highness, it's Xiaosan's fault. Xiaosan has wronged your Highness. Xiaosan will tell you the truth right now. Among our sisters, there are a total of 723 who have joined Great Sun sect just like us." Princess Zhang Li's expression flickered. Suddenly, among all the lady officials down below, several hundred of them rode on their flying swords and sped up into the sky. Some of them, whose cultivation base was not strong enough to fly on flying swords, simply exercised a light body technique and leaped into the sky, fleeing in panic. No matter it was flying on flying swords or using movement techniques, they were fleeing in all directions at the fastest speed. Like a hornet whose nest had been disturbed, they flew out in a messy manner. Princess Zhang Li's face turned livid with rage. Grinning coldly, she said, "Senior sisters, please help us." Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui cried out, transforming into two streams of white mist and soaring up into the sky. At the same time, they waved their hands and clenched their fists. Both early-stage nascent divinity cultivators struck at the same time, exercising the mystic divine ability of White Cloud Immortal Sect, the sky-covering white cloud stamp. Immediately, countless water vapor gathered from all directions, transforming into a hazy cloud with their will, blotting out the sky and enveloping all the fleeing female officials. Abruptly, the cloud tightened, and all the fleeing female officials froze in midair, unable to move even a finger. One after another, several hundred cultivators from White Cloud Immortal Sect brought here by Princess Xianglu flew up into the sky, pulling out specially made restraining ropes and getting ready to tie up these female officials. Princess Xianglu frowned and cried out sternly, "Why are you tying them up? Cripple all their cultivation bases. Since they have betrayed Great Yan, the cultivation bases given to them by Great Yan will naturally be taken back. Let's just cripple their cultivation bases directly, saving us a lot of trouble." Upon hearing that, all the cultivators from White Cloud Immortal Sect were taken aback. One after another, they retracted the specially made restraining ropes, then lightly pressed their palms on the lower abdomens of those female officials. With just a light touch, over 700 female officials' meridians and acupoints were destroyed, and their cultivation bases were gone in an instant. Only then did Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui wave their hands. A large cloud wrapped around these female officials, and they landed lightly on the ground. Both girls exchanged a glance and smiled, then turned to Princess Xianglu, nodded and said, "Junior sister, what should we do with these people?" Princess Xianglu gave Yan Xiaosan, who was kneeling on the ground and shouting a fuss, a cold glance, and shook her head lightly. Then, she pointed at those female officials who were lying on the ground, unable to move. Grinning coldly, Princess Xianglu said, "Somebody, chop off their heads and hang them at the city gates as a warning to others." Find out their names and backgrounds, then hand them over to scouting office. According to the law, they will be held accountable for the crimes of their clan members. I've said it before, if they refuse to behave themselves, I'll kill all their clan members. Remember this, don't leave any of them alive. Tell the people of scouting office that if one of their clan members escapes, I'll never let them go. Lu Ziyuan bowed his head and answered, then clapped his hands forcefully. A large group of Star-Picking City's armored soldiers rushed into the drill ground, dragging away those female officials who were crying out loud. Not long after that, the crisp sound of axes chopping flesh and bones was heard coming from outside the drill ground, and a strong smell of blood wafted into the drill ground along with the wind. Princess Zhanglu snorted coldly, then gave those female officials and eunuchs a sidelong glance, who dared not to move in the drill ground. She said coolly, Yan Xiaosan has exposed some of you who are harboring evil intentions. I'm sure some of you have slipped through the net. Come out on your own, and I'll spare the lives of your entire clan. Yan Xiaosan was stunned for a moment, then she said in a hoarse voice, Your Highness, all 723 sisters have. Smiling, Princess Zhanglu kicked Yan Xiaosan's face forcefully and snapped, Do you really think I'm more stupid than you? I haven't even punished you, and you've already betrayed all 723 of your friends. Are you trying to hide something, or are you trying to cover up something? Or, are you trying to use me to eradicate the disciples of Great Sun sect? Yan Xiaosan, who is the one who asked you to deceive me? Upon hearing Princess Zhang Li's words, Yan Xiaosan didn't say a word for a long time. After a long while, she abruptly chuckled and slowly shook her head. Sighing lightly, Yan Xiaosan stared at Princess Zhanglu and said with a cold voice, Your Highness, I didn't expect you to be so smart. Princess Zhanglu was fuming with anger. Have I always been stupid? She said furiously. Yan Xiaosan narrowed her eyes, gave a strange laugh and said, I must say, Your Highness is much smarter than before. The corner of Princess Zhang Li's mouth twitched with anger. The five-colored divine ray behind her suddenly condensed, transformed into a sword beam, and shot out. Yan Xiaosan gave a miserable howl as one of her arms flew off, leaving a trail of blood behind. Your accomplices are still down there, snapped Princess Zhanglu. Tell me their names. From afar, a deep voice filled with an evil power rang out, Princess Zhanglu, are you proud of yourself for killing so many of my disciples? Amidst the strong light emitted by the teleportation formation, a tall figure soared up into the sky. It was Lao Ai, with a gloomy face, flying swiftly toward them. Chapter 345. Compared to usual, Lao Ai looked even more evil and domineering today. His facial features did not change at all, and his stature was exactly the same as usual. He did not release any aura, and was simply flying through the air. But, he gave the impression of a dark cloud that was slowly approaching. It was an illusion that a dark cloud was pressing down on the city, making everyone feel so uncomfortable that they were about to vomit blood. Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui stood on either side of Princess Zhanglu, protecting her. Lao Ai, what are you trying to do? Cried Jiang Xian, who had a delicate face. With his hands clasped behind his back, Lao Ai slowly flew over the drill ground. He looked coldly at Yan Xiaosan, who was lying on the ground on the reviewing platform, and said coolly, I've spent so much effort to plant someone in the palace, and now he is being sold by a few bitches. Hee hee. Interesting, very interesting. With a complicated expression, Yan Xiaosan stared at Lao Ai, who was hovering in midair. Suddenly, she reached out her hand and gently cut her neck with her fingernail. A stream of blood sprayed out from her neck, but what came out of her body was a strange liquid that was as clear as water, devoid of any color of blood. Yan Xiaosan giggled. Suddenly, her body tilted and fell heavily to the ground. Her body twitched violently, then disintegrated into a puddle of sticky liquid that was devoid of any color of blood. Not only did her body disintegrate, but Yan Xiaosan's soul also shattered abruptly. Under the illumination of the sunlight, her disintegrated soul turned into a wisp of green smoke and drifted away. Only a few miserable howls that only cultivators with powerful divine sense could hear resounded in the air, and then Yan Xiaosan's soul disappeared without a trace. Yan Xiaowu and Yan Xiaojiu exchanged a glance, then simultaneously reached out their fingers and gently cut their own necks. A stream of blood sprayed out from their necks. It was the same clear liquid that was as clear as water. Abruptly, their bodies fell limply to the ground, and very quickly, they turned into a puddle of sticky liquid. Just like Yan Xiaosan, their souls were completely destroyed, leaving behind no soul fragments that could be used as evidence. Lao Ai snorted coldly, then snapped in a low voice, "How dare you betray your master? Do you really think everything will end with your deaths?" With a sinister smile, Lao Ai suddenly landed on the platform. Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui immediately guarded Princess Zhang Lu and took a few steps back. Jiang Rui, who had a voluptuous body and a beautiful face, shouted coldly, "Lao Ai, what are you trying to do?" Kirito tilted his head, and a wicked smile spread across his face. He gently swayed his body back and forth, laughing in a strange voice, "What are you doing? Do something this king is happy to do." "Hee, I've been following Su Mei, that vixen, and I've learned all kinds of magical techniques from her enchantment palace. Now, I'm lacking a few cauldrons. The two of you are at the primordial soul realm, which is perfect for this king to break through a realm." With a pair of eyes flickering with a faint pink evil gleam, Lao Ai glanced at Princess Zhang Lu and said in a sinister voice, "As for you, Your Highness, with the innate bloodline in your body, you should be able to help me advance to the heaven immortal realm, right? I didn't expect the princess to have such a precious item. Only a man like me, who cherishes flowers, would know how to enjoy such a wonderful item. Why should I let those green-haired boys have it?" Then, he gave a strange laugh. Before Princess Zhang Lu could say anything, Lao Ai stretched out both hands and thrust them out. Two large pink hands, each several feet in circumference, thrust out whistling noises of thunder. A faint, warm aroma spread in all directions, as all the female officials and eunuchs in the drill ground fell to the ground. Lao Ai laughed wildly and said, "Three little beauties, come with me obediently." Shielding Princess Zhang Lu, Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui retreated quickly. Furiously, Princess Zhang Lu glared at Lao Ai and snapped, "Lao Ai, you are too audacious." Lao Ai sneered and said, "Audacious? Princess, you have killed so many of my beloved concubines, and you still dare to say that I am audacious? Hee, I'll do it to you today, so what? Su Mei, that coquettish vixen, is about to break through the realm of heaven immortal. If worst comes to worst, after enjoying you, I'll go to a remote planet with her and set up my own sect, living happily there." Then, two large hands grabbed towards Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui at lightning speed. Both girls performed incantation gestures and were about to fight Lao Ai, but suddenly, a golden beam burst out from Lao Ai's palms and smashed viciously onto their chests, piercing through their defensive barrier and sending them flying away. A glinting golden talisman, 1 foot and 2 inches long, flashed across Lao Ai's palm. Laughing hideously, Lao Ai said, "How does an immortal talisman taste? You're just an early-stage nascent divinity cultivator." The defensive barrier around Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui was shattered. An evil force that felt like a thunderbolt, yet at the same time, it came with a soul-devouring and bone-melting itch, surged into their bodies, sealing their meridians and imprisoning their nascent divinity. Their bodies felt limp and weak, and they could not muster any strength. What was even worse was that a strange thought, which they had never experienced before, rose uncontrollably from their hearts. A strange warm current ran wildly through their bodies, and their cheeks turned pink abruptly. Their eyes turned watery, and their bodies softened and fell to the ground. Princess Zhang Lu was greatly alarmed. She grabbed Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, then suddenly, a 5-colored cloud emerged from under her feet as she quickly fled into the sky. No one knew the origin of the 5-colored auspicious light that she was born with, but it had an incredibly high compatibility with the natural energies. She was not riding on a sword beam, but merely flying on the cloud, yet her flying speed was actually comparable to that of Wu Qi when he was using the acquired magnetic sword escape technique. Lao Ai gave a strange laugh, retracted his two pink hands, and said in a low voice, "How can I let go of such a delicious meat that is already in my mouth? I never thought that there would be such a good thing waiting for me on Myriad Immortals planet." The connate spiritual qi, which was innately connected to all living things in the world, was a shortcut to the golden immortal realm for those cultivators. Even if I could get my hands on it, I could. After calculating with his fingers, Lao Ai murmured to himself in a low voice in a strange tone, "Excellent. If I can kill this Princess Xianglu and seize all her true yin and true spirits, I'll be able to increase White Tiger Saint Soul's cultivation by at least several tens of thousands of years, and my lifespan will be extended by at least 3 periods. With a lifespan of 3 Yuan Hui, who among my brothers can compete with me for the time being? Wonderful. It was just a routine secret inspection, but I never thought that there would be such a wonderful thing." Laughing wildly, Lao Ai cried out sternly, "Princess Xianglu, little Zi Xian, don't run away. I'll love you like a good girl." No ripple of energy could be sensed from him, and not even a glimmer of light could be seen. With a sway of his body, Lao Ai came before Princess Xianglu in a flash. He stretched out his arms, and Princess Xianglu nearly bumped into his chest. Lao Ai chuckled at the panic-stricken Princess Xianglu and said, "Be a good girl, and I'll love you like a good girl." This innate psychic chi can't be given to those brats who don't know anything. Staring fixedly at Princess Xiangli's beautiful and exquisite face that looked like it could only be found in a painting, Lao Ai said in a deep voice, "Be obedient to me, and I'll give you endless glory and wealth in the future, as well as countless benefits. I'm not bluffing. What I can give you is beyond your imagination. If you don't submit to this king, then blame this king for being ruthless and killing you." Princess Xianglu clenched her teeth and stared at Lao Ai. Her little face was taut, but she did not say a word. Just now, Lao Ai suddenly appeared before her and blocked her way. That was definitely not the teleportation ability of a nascent divinity cultivator. Instead, Princess Xianglu had a vague feeling that Lao Ai himself was that fast. His flying speed was as fast as the teleportation ability of a nascent divinity cultivator. Lao Ai grinned coldly, reaching out his hand and grabbing toward Princess Xianglu. "Yes, be obedient just like that," he said with a hideous smile. "The scenery here is not bad, and it's high up in the sky. Now, you and I will have a good time together. Give me your innate spiritual energy, and I'll give you endless benefits in the future." Suddenly, a blinding 5-colored light burst out from between Princess Xiangli's brows, and a faintly discernible pressure spread out from it. Lao Ai stared at Princess Xianglu in surprise, then smiled and said, "Are you still going to put up a stubborn resistance? What's the point?" Spreading his arms indifferently, Lao Ai laughed and said, "Then, little princess, let's see if you can hurt me with all your strength." Princess Xianglu stared coldly at Lao Ai. Quickly, all the energy in her body was injected into the 5 Thunders soul-shattering zither, which was being nourished in her spiritual ocean. Gradually, the strings on the zither lit up. Strange runes flew out from the zither like countless phoenixes dancing in the sky, absorbing Princess Xiangli's energy and transforming it into a strange yet vast force, which gradually fused with the strings. A 5-colored light emerged from behind Princess Xiangli's back, and in a blink of an eye, it had spread to an area of 10 miles in circumference. The natural energies within 1,000 miles around Princess Xianglu began to fluctuate faintly. A great amount of natural energies rushed into Princess Xiangli's body at an incredible speed like seawater in a huge whirlpool in the deep sea. Princess Xiangli's nascent soul devoured the natural energies and transformed them into her own energy, then kept injecting them into the 5 Thunders soul-shattering zither. If it were any other cultivators or immortals who used the zither, as long as they did not possess the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal, all the energy and immortal energies in their bodies would be drained in an instant. But, by relying on her unique bloodline power, Princess Xiangli's energy was being absorbed by the zither, and at the same time, she was transforming it into new energies and injecting them into the zither. In just a quarter of an hour, the total amount of energy Princess Xianglu had injected into the zither was equal to all the energies possessed by 10 early-stage nascent divinity cultivators. After waiting for another quarter of an hour, Lao Ai was getting impatient. He shouted sternly, "Little girl, are you still not ready? How long are you going to put on an act?" Princess Xianglu rolled her eyes and cried out sternly, "Can't wait any longer." Then, die. A bolt of lightning darted out from between her brows, and the five thunders soul-shattering zither dashed out along with a strange immortal tune. The zither hovered before Princess Xianglu and shone with a dazzling light. Countless talismans formed from lightning wheeled and danced around the zither like flying phoenixes, producing a deafening rumble of thunder. Clang! A strange, ear-piercing, unpleasant, and indescribable sound rang out. With Princess Xianglu as the center, a ring of white sonic boom rushed out 1,000 miles in an instant. Along with a loud swooshing noise, the defensive screen of the star-picking city was automatically activated, blocking the sonic boom. After that, all the defensive mechanisms on the entire city wall shattered at the same time, and a large section of the city wall crumbled into pieces. The people in the city were either killed or wounded, and the power of the sonic boom had shattered countless merchants. In that instant, the entire star-picking city turned blood red. That was the result of human bodies exploding. Blood rose into the sky and dyed the entire star-picking city red. Lao Ai, who bore the brunt of the sonic boom, suffered a shock that was thousands of times greater than that of star-picking city. The deafening boom echoed in his spiritual ocean, and his soul was nearly shredded like a dandelion seed in a hurricane. Lao Ai let out a shrill howl. All of his clothes were torn apart, and 7 to 8 large wounds appeared on his body. Large amounts of blood, and even pieces of internal organs, sprayed out from those wounds. Lao Ai's body swayed, and his facial muscles squirmed. Suddenly, he transformed into the face of a handsome man. Princess Xianglu cried out in shock, "You're not Lao Ai. Who are you?" Lao Ai let out a shrill howl. Blood spurted out from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth like fountains. His brain was nearly turned into tofu. He had no idea whether he was still alive or not, but he kept howling. A stream of white mist swooshed out from behind his back, within which, the soul of a 30 meters tall white tiger, with a pair of wings on its back, rose into the sky, pouncing towards Princess Xianglu with an overwhelming intent of killing. The surrounding area quaked abruptly. Once the white tiger showed up, the color of the sky changed, and an inexhaustible intent of killing enveloped the entire area, dispersing all natural energies. Chapter 346. While Princess Xianglu and Lao Ai were fighting fiercely above the ocean outside star-picking city, in the capital city of Tianlu Kingdom, the neighboring country of Gu Tai Dynasty on White Cloud Planet, Lao Ai was fighting valiantly in a bedchamber of Tianlu Kingdom's imperial palace. The bedchamber was luxuriously furnished, but the colors were mostly black and gold, giving off a depressing atmosphere. Empress Dowager Ci Hun, the current Empress Dowager who held the actual power of the imperial court, was lying naked on her stomach on the bed. Her face was flushed as she endured wave after wave of attacks from Lao Ai's back, which were as heavy as a mountain and as fast as lightning. Loud slapping noises echoed and echoed in the bedchamber, while Empress Dowager Ci Hun's moans and gasps could be heard coming from the bedchamber. Outside the bedchamber, Madman Shui was sitting steadily on a soft couch, while a few naked and beautiful palace maids were lying limply on the ground, looking at Madman Shui feebly with flushed faces. A petite girl, who looked to be at most 14 years old, had her knees wrapped around Madman Shui's waist, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, and her body was wriggling up and down on top of Madman Shui's body. The girl had fallen into a semi-conscious state, but her pretty face was filled with obsession and fanaticism. She was moaning in a low voice, her body was shivering and twitching, and strange pink spots were emerging on her skin as well. Madman Shui held tightly on the girl's slender waist with both hands, silently exercising the Great Sun technique taught to him by Lao Ai, extracting a thread of true yin energy from the girl's body and strengthening his own energy. In his dantian, there was already a fist-sized, glinting pinkish ball of energy. Shockingly, he had broken through the peak stage of Xiantian realm, stepping into the realm of Jin Dan human immortal. With the nourishment from the true Yin energy extracted from the girls over the past few days, his Jin Dan had reached a certain degree of maturity, and was about to turn into a corporeal Jin Dan. Suddenly, a long moan came from the girl who was wriggling on his body. Her petite body twitched a few times, then became limp and coiled around Madman Shue's body. She looked like a serpent that had its spine pulled out, and suddenly, a large amount of sweat broke out from her body. Madman Shui laughed wildly, picked up the girl, and threw her to the ground. After that, he shouted excitedly, "Somebody, help Her Highness take a bath and change her clothes. Invite Princess Yulu here so that she can study the supreme immortal technique with Lao Tzu." A few tall and sturdy eunuchs with fierce-looking faces were smiling flatteringly, carrying a young lady dressed in luxurious clothing who looked even more childish than the princess just now. Her face was already pale from fright, and she had long been scared out of her wits. Madman Shui laughed wildly as he grabbed Princess Yulu, who was struggling ceaselessly, and forcefully pushed her down onto the soft couch. Amidst the painful cry of a young girl, Madman Shui gasped and groaned, his body moving up and down like a pile driver. In the bedchamber, Empress Dowager Ci Guang gave a feeble cry. Her body was also drenched in sweat as she collapsed onto the couch. Gently, Lao Ai turned Empress Dowager Ci Guang over. With a tender and charming smile on his face, he said softly, "Enrong, do you feel beautiful?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang's name was Enrong. She stared at Lao Ai with an infatuated expression, her hands weakly stroking her snow-white, plump breasts. After a long while, she sighed and said, "Elder brother Lao Ai, Enrong has lived so many years in vain. How could there be such a wonderful thing in the world?" Enrong had never thought of this. Compared to elder brother Lao Ai, the late emperor is simply. Lao Ai stuck out his chest complacently, smiled tenderly, and said, "What did you say about that damned emperor? Let alone him, Lao Ai doesn't believe there is any man under the heaven who can defeat Lao Ai." With both hands gently stroking Empress Dowager Ci Guang's body, Lao Ai said coolly, "That troublesome prime minister's house was caught on fire last night, and his entire clan has been burned to death. Now, is there anyone in the imperial court who dares to make things difficult for Enrong?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang gave Lao Ai a charming smile, squeezing her long legs tightly around his waist. She chuckled and said, "Who dares to refute my decree? From today onwards, the Tianlu kingdom will be shared by elder brother Lao Ai. Tomorrow, I will issue an imperial decree, saying that elder brother Lao Ai is my cousin, a man with the talent to rule the heaven and earth, the pillar that holds up the sky, of the Tianlu kingdom, and that he will temporarily serve as the regent of the Tianlu kingdom." Lao Ai nodded delightfully and said, "Excellent. In the future, when Enrong and I give birth to a child, he will be the ruler of the Tianlu kingdom for generations to come." Lao Ai straightened his body and once again entered into Empress Dowager Ci Guang's body. He chuckled and said in a low voice, "I, the pillar that holds up the sky, will spread my seeds throughout the world, turning all the emperors under the heaven into my sons and grandsons. The thing that I failed to achieve in those years, I must make it come true now. How happy will it be to make all the emperors of the kingdoms address me as father?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang had lost her last bit of rationality. She hugged Lao Ai tightly and began to enjoy the pleasure with him once again. A series of slapping noises rang out once again. Not long after that, Empress Dowager Ci Guang let out a moan, rolled her eyes, and fainted. Lao Ai rose to his feet complacently, slowly wiping his body clean with a white handkerchief. Then, served by a few palace maids who were blushing beside him, he put on the imperial robe of the Tianlu kingdom's prince. After casually touching and pinching the bodies of these palace maids, Lao Ai's lust was aroused when he looked at the few young and beautiful palace maids. Just as he was about to put them on the bed and have some fun with them, a soft cry suddenly came from the courtyard, "Sect leader, patriarch, we have an urgent matter to report." Lao Ai was taken aback. He waved his hand and drove the few palace maids aside, then strode out of the bedchamber. Madman Shui, who was making Princess Yulu roll her eyes at the entrance of the bedchamber, rose to his feet hastily and stood naked in front of the bedchamber, staring coldly at a few beardless, pale men clad in eunuch outfits. These few men had just arrived at the bedchamber under the lead of a few disciples of Great Sun sect. Madman Shui did not notice them at first, but he did not expect that they would suddenly call out to Lao Ai. Therefore, Madman Shui had no choice but to stop what he was doing and stand up to receive Lao Ai's order. After walking out of the bedchamber, Lao Ai gave Princess Yulu a look, who lay paralyzed on the soft bed and could not move at all. He nodded at Madman Shui and praised, "Disciple, you have a good eyesight. This girl is full of innate energy, and having sex with her will save you 30 years of laborious cultivation." Disciple has been diligent these few days. In just a few days, you have stepped into the realm of Jin Dan. Not bad at all. Madman Shui bowed respectfully and said gratefully, "This is all thanks to Master's excellent teaching, and also because of your marvelous technique. It is not laborious at all. Over the past few days, I have doted on 37 princesses of Tianle Kingdom. It is a wonderful thing. How is it laborious?" Lao Ai laughed complacently, nodded his head, and said, "I like what you said. Among all the divine techniques under the heaven, there is no one who can progress faster than us, master and disciple. As long as we have a girl with a good aptitude as our cultivation vessel, our cultivation base will advance at a tremendous pace, and no one can ever compare with us." Patting Madman Shui's shoulder, Lao Ai cast a cold glance at the few eunuchs standing respectfully in the courtyard before the bedchamber and snorted coldly, "What is it? Aren't you keeping an eye on the activity in G City? Why did you leave your post and come here?" Upon hearing his words, the few eunuchs in Great Yen Imperial Palace, the secret disciples of Great Sun sect, dropped to their knees respectfully, gave Lao Ai a few kowtows and said, "Sect Master, Patriarch, we have some shocking news to report to you. This news is too important, and we dared not to neglect it. That's why we came here to report it to you, Patriarch." Lao Ai nodded his head and said in a deep voice, "What is the shocking news? Stand up and tell me." The few eunuchs gave him a few more kowtows, then rose to their feet. Carefully, the eunuch who led the group took out a jade slip, stepped forward and handed it over to Lao Ai. The jade slip was simple and unadorned, carved into the shape of a strange-looking bird. The blade technique was simple and crude, but it contained an extraordinary aura. Lao Ai sent his divine will into the jade slip, and was immediately attracted by the information contained in it. Suddenly, his face flushed red, and he cried out in wild joy, "Excellent! You have all contributed a great merit this time. Everyone will be rewarded handsomely. Quick, follow me to that place and have a look." The information contained in the jade slip was very simple. It was a map of a secret immortal abode on Myriad Immortals' planet, as well as a detailed record of how to get in and out of the restrictive spells. According to the few eunuchs, this jade slip was seized by a secret agent of Great Yen's scouting office from Great Zhao's Xiaowu Palace at a great cost, and was immediately sent back to Great Yen through a secret channel. However, halfway through the journey, it was intercepted by Great Sun sect's disciples in the Imperial Palace, and all the related people were killed. In the end, the jade slip was personally sent to Lao Ai by these eunuchs. It was a complete map of an ancient secret immortal abode, and a record of how to break through the restrictive spells, which no one had ever discovered before. Needless to say, there must be a lot of good stuff in it. Burning with impatience, Lao Ai was too lazy to pay any attention to the affairs of Tianle Kingdom. He left a few disciples to take charge of the overall situation, then hurriedly brought Madman Shui and a few eunuchs back to Myriad Immortals' planet through a grand universal teleportation formation. Following the map in the jade slip, Lao Ai brought nearly 100 disciples and stealthily came to the southernmost marshland of Great Yen Dynasty. Without hesitation, he followed the map and went deep into the marshland, going 36,000 miles deep into the marshland, and came to a mountain range that stretched for several tens of thousands of miles in the depths of the marshland. The mountain range here was steep, filled with barren hills and unruly rivers, venomous snakes and bugs, and even some strange creatures that could not be explained with words. The southern marshland of Great Yen Dynasty was the most feared place in the four cardinal directions of Great Yen Dynasty. The Eastern Ocean was vast and boundless, inhabited by countless powerful aquatic clans, the northern snowfield was extremely cold, and the natural environment was extremely harsh. The western Meng Mountains were filled with countless demon clans and barbarians. The southern marshland was a land of mystery, boundless mystery, extremely mysterious and frightening. No one in the entire Great Yen Dynasty knew exactly how large the marshland was, and what exactly was hidden in it. Following the map, Lao Ai brought nearly 100 disciples and searched in this mountain range for a few days. Finally, they found a lofty mountain surrounded by 9 small mountain ranges that meandered like dragons, with steep slopes that looked like screens. The lofty mountain was bare and barren, and not even a single strand of natural energy could be found within the circumference of 100 miles. There was only a faint, piercingly cold aura that made one's heart shiver. Staring at the mysterious and bizarre lofty mountain, Lao Ai gave his surroundings a cautious glance. He could not make up his mind whether he should enter the mountain and explore it. But someone had made the decision for him. 2 eunuchs standing behind him took out a golden talisman and waved it in the air. Immediately, a clump of golden cloud enveloped Lao Ai and the several dozens of disciples around him, including Madman Shui. Then, with a flash, they were brought to the foot of the lofty mountain. Suddenly, the barren lofty mountain that looked like a steamed bun lit up, and a large number of runes began to emerge from it. An enormous pressure came pressing down on Lao Ai, causing his knees to go weak, and he was pinned to the ground, unable to move even a little bit. All the disciples around him were howling and howling miserably, as their bodies were crushed into pieces by the sudden pressure. Chapter 347. Help me, Master. A terrible pressure came pressing down from all directions. Madman Shui felt as if he was a bean that had gone soft after soaking in a millstone, and was about to be crushed into powder by the hard and heavy millstone. Cracking noises could be heard coming from his bones, while countless bloody wounds opened up on his skin. A large amount of blood gushed out through his torn muscles and blood vessels. In just a blink of an eye, he had turned into a man of blood. Lao Ai, who was also thrown into a very awkward situation by the sudden pressure, gave a muffled snort and grabbed Madman Shui's hand. A clump of pinkish mist sprayed out from Lao Ai's body, firmly shielding him and Madman Shui. Then, a sweet moan rang out, as 9 pearls the size of a human head shot out from the top of Lao Ai's head, emitting a dazzling light that shielded Lao Ai and his disciples, who had been killed by 7 to 8 of them. Soft giggles kept coming out from the 9 pearls. Silhouettes flashed across the air, and 9 beautiful girls walked out from the pearls. Their bodies were graceful, and every single movement they made was filled with a boundless charm. These 9 girls looked very young, with pure and innocent faces. At first glance, one could tell that they were young ladies from influential clans who were not familiar with the affairs of the world. However, they were very tall, and their bodies were very sexy. Their naked bodies were even more attractive than all the popular girls in the brothels under the heaven. The 9 girls took a few steps around Lao Ai. Suddenly, one of them chuckled, clenched her fists, and threw a powerful punch forward. A beam of pinkish light shot out, shaking the void and producing a loud boom. A large sheet of flame exploded, leaving dozens of cracks on the ground under Lao Ai and the others' feet. Giggles lingered in the air as the 9 girls transformed into countless afterimages and flew all over the sky. Wherever they went, countless snow-white punches smashed into the surrounding void, shaking the heaven and earth. The surrounding mountain ridges were undulating, with some rocks crumbling and hilltops falling off. There were also many large cracks on the ground, with pale yellow earthen mist and millstone-sized rocks flying up into the sky. Lao Ai had protected himself and his disciples with the 9 pearls, and used the 9 girls to attack the restrictive spells in the surroundings. Then, he pulled Madman Shui to his feet and stared coldly at the few eunuchs who were hovering in midair several tens of miles away. Good, Lao Ai has been a villain all his life, but I never thought that I would be tricked by someone today. When did you betray Great Sun Sect? The few eunuchs bowed respectfully at Lao Ai. The eunuch who led the group shouted at Lao Ai in a deep voice, "We have never belonged to Great Sun Sect. It's just that Patriarch, in order to expand your power in the Imperial Palace, you unintentionally took us in as your disciples. Over the years, we, the crippled men, have been able to be reborn, and that is all thanks to you, Patriarch. You bunch of ungrateful bastards." Lao Ai stared at the few eunuchs with a gloomy face, nodded slowly and said, "If I don't die today, I'll definitely wipe out your 9 clans." Amidst a loud boom, the 9 girls who were fleeing in all directions suddenly joined forces and struck a certain spot in the void in front of them. 9 fair and slender fists hit a certain spot in the void almost at the same time. Suddenly, a large number of runes exploded from the top of the mountain that was emitting a blinding light. Huge rocks were torn to pieces, and the tremendous pressure that came pressing down from the surroundings was reduced by at least 30%. Lao Ai let out a loud laugh, then casually pointed a finger at them. 9 drops of blood flew out from his fingertips, and the 9 girls laughed joyfully at the same time. Hastily, each of them caught a drop of Lao Ai's blood and swallowed it. Suddenly, their bodies changed. From the enchanting and beautiful girls just a moment ago, their skin and flesh turned transparent like glass, revealing their pinkish bones with a faint golden hue. Lao Ai smiled faintly and said in a cold voice, "Trying to trap me with a mere restrictive spell of magnetic force. All of you are delusional. Pink skeletons are nothing but things that will fade away in the mortal world. The heavenly Tao is desolate, and only one's heart is as firm as a vajra." As Lao Ai's voice rang out, the 9 girls sat down cross-legged, with 3 flawless, white lotus thrones emerging out of nowhere under them. They performed lotus incantation gestures with their hands and recited the Vajra exorcism mantra. Quickly, their skin and flesh melted into a transparent liquid and fused into their bones. Before long, 9 pinkish skeletons with a faint golden hue sat cross-legged on the 9 lotus thrones. Not only did they not look ferocious or frightening, but there was a sense of sacredness in their evilness, and a hint of cuteness in their dignified manner. The pink skeletons looked like lotus roots that had just come out of the water, fresh and tender, as if water could be squeezed out of them with just a pinch. Lao Ai gave a long and sonorous cry and cried out, "Will of delight, the great joy of the heavens." 9 white lotus thrones gracefully rolled up, firmly wrapping the 9 skeletons in the white lotus petals. A chanting echoed out as the 9 lotus thrones soared up into the sky, dancing rapidly in the air, then suddenly transformed into a sheet of hazy white light that drifted down from the sky. 9 pearls flew up into the sky, emanating a solemn and sacred aura, and fused into the sheet of white light in the sky. About 3 to 5 breaths later, the white light faded away, revealing a wheel, about 63 feet in diameter, pink in color, with 9 layers on the inside and outside, in which countless heavenly demons were dancing gracefully, heavenly maidens were sprinkling petals, and an endless number of fairies were dancing gracefully in the air. It hovered gracefully behind Lao Ai's back. A pinkish lotus throne flew out from the middle of the wheel and slowly fell under Lao Ai's feet, carrying him up into the sky and merging with the huge wheel. Every time Lao Ai breathed, the countless heavenly demons, fairies, and fairies would laugh joyfully together. Chi-Chi made his move. When Wu-Chi looked carefully into the wheel, he could see a boundless miraculous realm of joy, as if he had traveled through all the worlds in just a blink of an eye and seen countless scenes of great joy and happiness. If it were an ordinary cultivator, with just a single glance, his soul would have been sucked into the wheel and completely melted into the boundless miraculous realm. With his long black hair fluttering behind his head, Lao Ai sat on the lotus throne with a solemn expression and said coolly, "Extreme Yin gives birth to Yang, and extreme Yang gives birth to Yin. The ultimate of the evil Tao is not the fiend, but the Buddha who shares the same body with the fiend. I, Lao Ai, have comprehended the miraculous principles of the heaven and earth with the art of delight. In the future, what I will attain is not the Tao of heaven immortal, but the Arhat of delight. A pink and translucent relic flew out from between Lao Ai's brows, emanating a boundless bright light and emanating an immeasurable pressure, hovering right in front of him. Lao Ai gently pointed his finger at the relic, and a ring of transparent divine will that could be seen with naked eyes burst out from it, sweeping across all the mountains and rivers within 10,000 miles in a blink of an eye. Wherever the divine will swept across, every single blade of grass, every single insect, and every single fish was under the observation of Lao Ai's Dharma eyes. Lao Ai let out a long laugh, then turned to look at a mountain ridge behind the few dumbfounded eunuchs and said coolly, "You Qianqian, you bitch. Get the hell out here right now. Is it your Yu Academy who is scheming against Great Sun Sect? Wait until this king captures you alive. This king will make you, an old virgin who can't get married, beg for death but can't get it. Get the hell out here, take off all your clothes and lie on the ground obediently, waiting for my favor. Then, I'll spare your entire clan." The few eunuchs had a panicked look on their faces. They exchanged a glance, then suddenly backed away at the same time. Lao Ai sneered, shook his head, breathed out a long sigh and said, good children, good children. How can you still be alive after betraying me? Exterminate." When he uttered the word, exterminate, the bodies of the few eunuchs suddenly froze. After that, they vanished without a trace. Lao Ai's enormous willpower, the willpower of Buddhist League, and not the divine will of Tao League, had wiped out all traces of the few eunuchs' existence in a blink of an eye. Naturally, their fleshly bodies and souls had vanished along with it, leaving no trace that they were once alive. Madman Shua and the other disciples of Great Sun Sect could only remember these few eunuchs. It was because Lao Ai's divine ability and magical power were too weak. If it were a real Buddha who used this method to kill someone, the memory of the victim would be completely wiped out from the hearts and souls of all living beings under the heaven and earth. Apart from those almighty experts who were on par with the Buddha, no one would be able to remember them. That was the truly mysterious and boundless divine ability that ruled over everything. Compared to a Buddha like that, Lao Ai was nothing more than a drop of water in a vast ocean, far inferior to the real Buddha. A soft clap rang out. From behind the mountain where Lao Ai pointed and scolded just now, Yu Qianqian walked out with a smile on her face and a young man who looked valiant and extraordinary. Yu Qianqian chuckled and said, "You are indeed worthy of being the sect leader of Great Sun Sect. May I ask what kind of cultivation technique Senior Lao Ai is practicing?" Lao Ai rolled his eyes and casually thrust out his palm. A huge and hazy hand that could overturn the heavens gently fell down from the sky. It was densely covered with countless runes, glinting with a strong light and emanating a tremendous magnetic force. When the huge hand lightly touched the mountain that imprisoned Lao Ai and his company, it immediately turned into a clump of dust and drifted away in the air, leaving behind a huge palm print that measured several dozens of miles in circumference and 1 mile deep into the ground. Lao Ai snorted coldly and said coolly, "Cut the crap. Yu Qianqian, strip off all your clothes and lie on the ground yourself. I'll only play with you, not kill you. If I do it myself, I'll strip off all your clothes, every single member of your Yu clan, and every single member of your Yu Academy, I'll kill every single one of them." Yu Qianqian's expression changed instantly, turning extremely venomous. With a livid face, she glared at Lao Ai and said with a cold grin, "You?" Lao Ai rose to his feet, took off his long robe and pants, revealing his erect lower body. Grinning hideously, he said, "You don't believe me? Why don't you give it a try?" Yu Qianqian's livid face turned purple with anger. No matter how ruthless and cunning she was still a virgin girl. An old demon like Lao Ai was an extremely shameless man. How could she possibly defeat Lao Ai by playing with such an evil trick? Covering her face with her sleeve, Yu Qianqian cried out sternly, "Elder brother Heda, I'll have to trouble you. Once Lao Ai is killed, I'll replace him and control Great Sun Sect. With that, the entire Great Yen dynasty will be in my pocket. The valiant young man chuckled and said, well, it's been a long time since I've exercised my hands and feet. Let's see what kind of tricks these people have up their sleeves. Yuheda breathed out a sigh, smiled and said, although these people are born from the same origin as us, they are indeed different from our clan members. Their cunning tricks are top-notch. Qianqian, those seniors of yours have returned to their clan, and now, they are the pillars of the clan. Qianqian, your current methods of killing are also decisive. I'm sure you'll have a bright future ahead of me. I hope you can take good care of me in the future. Yu Qianqian smiled faintly, nodded at Yuheda and said, elder brother, you're being too courteous. We still don't know what will happen in the future. But, since you've shown your face in front of Lao Ai today, I can't let them leave this place alive. Yuheda smiled faintly and said, don't worry, Qianqian. If I can't kill him, how can I easily show my face in public? Yuheda smiled confidently and proudly. Suddenly, a dark cloud soared up into the sky from the top of his head. A thunderbolt flashed through the dark cloud, and a strange beast soul, standing 100 feet tall, with a black skin and one leg, and a pair of purple-blue horns on its head, constantly unleashing thunderbolts that stretched for tens of thousands of feet. Lao Ai's face fell instantly. He cried out with a stern voice, the soul of the ancient thunder beast, Kuei Ox? Yuheda grinned coldly and did not answer. Abruptly, he merged his body with the soul of Kuei Ox, transforming into a clump of thunderbolt and thrusting towards Lao Ai. Lao Ai snorted coldly. He recited a scripture in silence, then flipped both palms. A pinkish divine ray shot out soundlessly from his palms. Chapter 348. Above the East Ocean of Great Yen, Princess Zhanglu was carrying Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, who were limp and had their faces flushed. She was staring coldly at the winged beast soul of the white tiger, who was rushing down towards her. She took a deep breath, and with every breath she took, an enormous amount of water element energy would fuse into her body, turning into pure and powerful energies that circulated through her entire body. Wisps of five-colored light kept rushing out from Princess Zhongli's body, being absorbed into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither, which had its glow dimmed down suddenly. For cultivators and heaven immortals below the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal, once they used the zither, all their energy would be sucked dry by it. However, Princess Zhongli had a unique physique, which allowed her to replenish her energies at any time she wanted. As a result, even though she had exercised the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither with all her strength, she still had enough energy to continue supplying energies to the zither. Gradually, the zither's strings lit up, and numerous runes drifted out from it, slowly wheeling and dancing around the strings. After placing Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui on the cloud, Princess Zhongli held the zither with one hand and pressed her other hand on the strings. Stealthily, she took out a few spirit pills concocted especially for the core disciples of White Cloud Immortal Sect, and swallowed them. Immediately, more energies were produced in her body, rushing into the zither through her meridians. The white tiger's soul let out a deafening roar, then shot towards Princess Zhonglu in a beam of white light. A five-colored divine gleam flickered in Princess Zhongli's eyes. In that very moment, she had once again entered into a profound and unpredictable state of enlightenment. Although the white tiger was approaching menacingly and at an extremely fast speed, in Princess Zhongli's eyes, its speed was extremely slow and sluggish, as if it was approaching her bit by bit. Princess Zhongli could vaguely see the ripples in the void around the white tiger, caused by its enormous power. She could also see the countless profound runes and glows shrouding the white tiger's body. It was a very short moment, but for Princess Zhongli, it was a very long moment. The white tiger's killing aura forced back all the heaven and earth spirit chi in the air, but the ocean below was boundless, and the water attribute spirit chi was endless. The huge amount of water attribute spirit chi kept pouring into Princess Zhongli's body from afar, turning into rolling Zhen Yuan and merging into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither. Activating the five thunders soul-shattering zither in the realm of enlightenment, Princess Zhongli's divine sense gradually came into contact with that irascible, restless, and even slightly tyrannical artifact spirit within the five thunders soul-shattering zither. Just like how Jing Ku assassinated the Emperor of Qin years ago, the item spirit of this zither was filled with a brutal aura, as if it would rather perish together with the enemy. It was unknown where the heaven immortal who crafted this zither found such a supreme-grade item spirit. Gradually, the connection between Princess Zhonglu and the item spirit deepened, and a desperate aura began to emanate from her body, as if she would rather die than live in dishonor. A faint blood-red gleam shone from her eyes. Slowly, Princess Zhonglu clenched the zither strings with her fingers and pulled them, aiming at the incoming white tiger. The man who impersonated Lao Ai was staggering and flying in the air a few miles away, as if he was drunk. The strike from the five thunders soul-shattering zither had not only left a terrible wound on his body, it had also severely wounded his soul, and even his white tiger's soul was severely damaged. What was even worse was that his eardrums were broken, and some fine structures in his ear canals were shattered by the tremendous sound wave, which directly affected his balance. His vision turned dark, and his divine will could not work. He could not even keep the balance of his body, and his fleshly body was severely wounded. Panicked and frightened, Lao Ai had no idea how to deal with the situation. He forgot to control his beast soul, and just let it pounce towards Princess Zhonglu by instinct. However, in the way of beast warriors, the beast soul had to fight together with the soul of its host in order to unleash the tremendous power it had when it was still alive. Without the help of the host's soul, the beast's soul alone could only control less than 1/1000th of the power it had when it was still alive. Facing the white tiger's soul, which was getting closer and closer, Princess Zhonglu calmly locked her eyes on it. She clenched the zither strings with her fingers, and the sharp and powerful strings cut Princess Zhongli's fingers. Drops of blood flowed down the strings and fell onto the zither. The zither absorbed all the blood, and gradually, Princess Zhonglu and the zither had a connection of blood and soul. When the white tiger's soul was less than 1,000 feet away from her, Princess Zhonglu gently loosened the strings. Clang! Once again, an extremely unpleasant sound rang out. A white, cone-shaped sonic boom shot out from the five thunders soul-shattering zither, enveloping the huge white tiger beast soul within it. Just now, when Princess Zhonglu unleashed her full-strength attack, the sonic boom unleashed by the five thunders soul-shattering zither rushed out in all directions at the same time. As a result, the powerful offensive force was greatly dispersed, and did not cause any fatal blow to Lao Ai. But this time, Princess Zhonglu had learned how to concentrate the sound wave attack from five thunders soul-shattering zither. She compressed the white sound wave into a several hundred feet thick pillar of sound wave that shot straight ahead, hitting the white tiger beast soul precisely. As the power was compressed, the amount of energy Princess Zhonglu injected in this short period of time was less than 1% of the previous attack. However, as the sound waves were concentrated in a straight line, the power was a few times stronger than the attack Lao Ai suffered just now. A beast roar rose into the sky. The zither had the magical effect of attacking souls. Struck by the white sonic boom, the white tiger soul's body blurred and nearly disintegrated in the air. A large number of spell symbols and streams of light flickered inside the white tiger's body. Suddenly, the dim glow on all the spell symbols dimmed, and a few of them were nearly extinguished on the spot. The white tiger's body trembled violently, and a big half of the pair of fleshy wings on its back exploded. The white tiger's soul let out a sad roar, barely stabilized its body, and continued dashing towards Princess Zhonglu. Right at this moment, Lao Ai was hit by the sonic boom as well. His legs, arms, and a large piece of skin and flesh on his chest were shattered by the rapid sonic boom. He let out a miserable howl and shouted, "White tiger, come back. Protect your master." The white tiger threw its head back and let out a long roar. Its huge claws were less than 3 inches away from Princess Zhongli's delicate neck. It threw its head back and let out a long roar, then abruptly transformed into a beam of white light and shot back, fusing with Lao Ai's body. Lao Ai threw his head back and let out a tiger roar. Suddenly, His body expanded by a few times, reaching the height of 50 feet. His muscles swelled up, and a faint white gleam could be seen flickering under his skin, emanating a cold and sharp aura. There was also a pressure that no one dared to look directly at him. His arms and legs, which were shattered by the zither melody, were reborn along with a white beam that flashed abruptly. Lao Ai waved his arms, threw his head back and let out a long and wild roar. As a result, a stream of blood sprayed out from his mouth, and his body trembled, nearly falling into the ocean. The 2 attacks from the zither melody had seriously wounded him. Even though he had regrown his limbs with the power of the beast's soul, he had consumed too much of his prime energy. "Little girl, you're going to die. I, Yu Hetian, swear that I'll torture." Before Yu Hetian could finish his curse while gnashing his teeth, a large iron hammer, the size of a small house, came whistling from behind him, smashing forcefully on the back of his head. It was unknown what material was used to forge this hammer, as it was extremely hard. Apart from its hardness, it was extremely heavy as well. Judging from its size, one could tell that it was definitely not light. The heavy blow caught Yu Hetian off guard and caused the back of his head to cave in. His eyeballs nearly popped out from his eye sockets. His tongue stretched out 3 inches long, spraying a large amount of saliva and blood several hundred feet away. After being struck twice by the 5 Thunder's soul-shattering zither, which was a 33rd grade immortal item, his injuries were extremely serious. Dizzy and deafened, he did not notice that there was an enemy coming from his back, and it was a very powerful enemy. Yu Hetian was knocked flying away by the hammer, coughing out mouthfuls of blood as he turned his head around in a sorry state. Catfish Flood Dragon, who had transformed into a body of over 100 feet tall, had a huge catfish head, and was enshrouded in rolling dark clouds. She was carrying the black hammer, which had a shape similar to that used by blacksmiths in a blacksmith's shop, the size of a small house. She grinned widely at Yu Hetian. Saliva was trickling down from the corner of her mouth, and she said with a muffled voice, "Zi Xian is my good sister. How dare you hit her? Is my hammer delicious? I think your flesh must be very delicious. TSK, TSK, it's smooth and tender." After being nourished by the white tiger soul's energy, Yu Hetian's skin was indeed smooth and tender, like the finest mutton fat jade. Catfish Flood Dragon, who was very experienced in eating human flesh, could tell with just one glance that he was a good man who tasted pretty good, and was the best among all human flesh. Therefore, her saliva was dripping down from her mouth. Yu Hetian had a severe concussion, and had no idea what time it was today, and no idea who he was. He shook his head, pointed his finger at Catfish Flood Dragon, and cursed furiously, "Evildoer. You! How dare you hurt me? You're dead." Before Yu Hetian could finish his words, a tens of miles thick water column suddenly shot up from the bottom of the ocean and smashed viciously onto his body. Yu Hetian howled miserably as he was pushed over 100 miles up into the sky by the water column. After that, blood was seen splattering in all directions, and a 3-toothed harpoon was seen sticking out from his buttocks. While howling miserably, he tumbled down from the sky. The water column crumbled with a boom, and a heavy rain immediately poured down from the ocean within 100 miles in circumference. Lord Xianqing suddenly appeared amidst the water column. He was holding a 3-toothed harpoon in his left hand, pointing it at Yu Hetian, who was falling down from the sky, and snapped, "How dare you lay your hands on my sister-in-law in my territory? You're going to die today. I'm going to chop you into pieces and give them to my men." The water column just now was a trick created by Lord Xiansheng, who had rushed here after hearing the news. Hiding in the water column, he casually thrust the harpoon into Yu Hetian's crotch. Now, only less than 3 feet of the 18 feet long 3-toothed harpoon was exposed. It was obvious how deep the harpoon had gone into Yu Hetian's body. Howling and howling miserably, Yu Hetian grabbed the harpoon from his buttocks and howled, "Despicable, shameless, despicable, filthy. You bunch of evildoers." Having been stabbed in such an embarrassing spot, Yu Hetian was so ashamed that he nearly wanted to commit suicide. If this were to spread out, he would no longer be able to show his face in the future. Lord Xiansheng gave a strange laugh, shook his head and said, "Despicable. Despicable? Shameless? There is a barb on the harpoon. Please don't pull it out, as there is a deadly poison on it. Please." Before his voice could fade away, Yu Hetian had already pulled the harpoon out forcefully. In the end, another miserable howl rang out. Yu Hetian pulled the harpoon forcefully, pulling it out from his lower body along with a large intestine. The intestine had turned black, green, blue, and purple. Sure enough, there were barbs on it, and it was laced with deadly poison. Furthermore, it was not just one type of poison. The pain made Yu Hetian feel like he was about to die. He could no longer fuse with his white tiger beast's soul. Both of their souls separated abruptly, and the white tiger beast's soul reappeared behind his back. All of a sudden, a silver lotus came shooting over, from within which came the divine flame of order, 30 feet tall and as thick as a water tank, wrapping around the white tiger beast's soul and burning it. Princess Zhang pinched her fingers and controlled the silver lotus to trap the white tiger beast's soul. She kept opening her mouth and spraying out streams of 5-colored auspicious clouds, making the divine flame of order burn even more vigorously. The pain made Yu Hetian howl and howl miserably. His body twitched violently as he fell to the ground, crying out at the top of his voice, "You can't kill me. I'm the son of Marquis Jian, the human emperor. You can't kill me, because if you do, you are going against the heavenly Tao." Before his voice could fade away, Catfish Flood Dragon had already rushed forward, grabbed Yu Hetian up, and swallowed him whole without even washing him. Gulp! Catfish Flood Dragon praised. Delicious! Suddenly, a beam of jade light shot out from Catfish Flood Dragon's mouth, from within which came a stern voice, "Who dares to kill my beloved son?" A vague fist shot out from the jade light, thrusting straight towards Catfish Flood Dragon's chest. Chapter 349. Heavenly Tao. Princess Zhang snorted disdainfully at Yu Hetian's words. The purple clear divine flame on the silver lotus converged inwards. The white tiger beast's soul let out a shrill howl, turned into countless pure white fluorescent lights, and shattered into pieces. Following the secret method taught by Wu Qi, Princess Zhang hurriedly waved her hand at those white fluorescent lights. Immediately, a white waterfall rushed straight into her palm and was absorbed into her spiritual sea, merging with her nascent soul. The essence of the soul of this white tiger beast's soul was extremely powerful. After it was refined by the divine flame of order, it broke down into its essence particles, which made Princess Zhang Li's soul grow stronger at an incredible speed. Gradually, even her nascent soul could no longer withstand such a rapid increase. A strange transformation, in which a quantitative change gave rise to a qualitative change, was quietly taking place in her nascent soul. Princess Zhang Li's nascent soul quivered slightly. Then, a wisp of golden nascent soul quietly gushed out of her nascent soul, transforming into a hazy silhouette, hovering in her spiritual ocean. But before Princess Zhang could rejoice over the great benefit she had gained, a jade-colored beam of light shot out from Catfish Flood Dragon's mouth, which was the fist. Fist winds vibrated, and the surrounding void froze. An aura of toughness, yet gentleness, like a supreme-grade precious jade had enveloped Catfish Flood Dragon, making her feel like a bug sealed in ice, unable to move even a little bit. That blurry fist shadow was about to hit her body. In the blink of an eye, Lord Xiansheng gave a long hiss and transformed into a horned dragon, lashing out with his tail. Crack! The air within several tens of feet around Catfish Flood Dragon exploded like crystals, shattering the aura that had sealed all her movements. The Catfish Flood Dragon shuddered and came to her senses. Without saying a word, she immediately transformed back to her true form, and exerted all her strength to make her body bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, she had transformed into a huge catfish, measuring over 10 miles long. Her entire body was covered with pitch-black dragon scales, and the 2 dragon horns on her head were extremely eye-catching. Under her grayish-white belly, 4 dragon claws were stirring up clouds, smoke, and lightning. Surrounded by mist, she let out a deep roar, and also used her huge fish tail to fiercely whip the fist shadow. With a loud bang, the fist shadow dissipated. Catfish Flood Dragon's nearly 1 mile long tail exploded into pieces, causing her flesh and bones to splatter like a rainstorm. A great amount of blood gushed out from the broken part of her tail and fell into the ocean below, dyeing the water red. Catfish Flood Dragon burped, then let out a painful cry. Didn't I just eat a human? Why did you punch me? I, your grandaunt, have eaten many people. The jade-colored light was still floating in the air when the voice shouted, how dare you? You killed my son and even ate him. You are audacious and out of control. You must die. No matter what, you must die today. Even if you are at the ends of the earth, in the most remote corner of universal heavenly galaxy, you must die today. The jade-colored light spread out abruptly, and vaguely, 2 huge palms could be seen flickering amidst the light. The 2 huge palms grabbed the void and forcefully tore it apart. The void vibrated, and even showed signs of shattering. However, it seemed that the strength of the 2 huge palms was not enough to tear the void. Even though Princess Xianglu and the others could hear the man gnashing his teeth and panting with great effort, the void only vibrated, and showed no sign of shattering. Princess Xianglu retracted the silver lotus. While exercising her cultivation technique to absorb the enormous soul power of the white tiger soul, she pointed her finger and said, "This man is using the technique of soul attachment. He has hidden a fist force and a thread of spirit will in Yu Hetian's soul. Once Yu Hetian is killed, the fist force will explode, and he will be able to sense the birth of his son. He does not have a very strong overall strength, so it seems it will be a little difficult for him to tear the void and come here directly." When a person with the cultivation base of heaven immortal or above used the technique of soul attachment and left a thread of spirit will on someone, when the man was killed, the thread of spirit will would be equivalent to a coordinate, allowing the person to use some divine abilities or techniques. If the person had the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal or above, by relying on the coordinate, he would be able to tear the void directly, or come here personally, or attack the enemy near the coordinate. However, to tear the void and come here personally or attack the enemy, not only did it require the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal or above, but the distance between the coordinate and the target was also a problem. The further the distance, the more energy it would take to tear the void open. However, it seemed that the man in the jade-colored light did not have enough energy to tear the void and come here directly. From White Cloud Immortal Sect's Scripture Pavilion, Princess Xianglu had learned many methods about the realm of heaven immortals. She knew about the technique of soul attachment, and she also knew about the technique of tearing the void open and coming here directly. Therefore, looking at the pair of trembling hands in the jade-colored light that were tearing the void, Princess Xianglu could not help but giggle and said, "He is just wasting his effort. Judging from the look of it, his cultivation base is not that strong. Otherwise, that punch just now would have killed Catfish Flood Dragon." Shaking her head and wagging her tail, Catfish Flood Dragon transformed back into her human form. She clenched her jaws and growled, "I don't care who he is. Since he is here, I've eaten him. I've eaten him. My tail. How much time and effort will it take me to grow it back?" Even though she was a demon dragon, Catfish Flood Dragon was, after all, a girl, and she was particular about her body shape. It was too ugly for her to suddenly transform into a bald dragon. Catfish Flood Dragon's eyes turned bloodshot, and she clenched her teeth so tightly that a loud cracking noise could be heard. The man in the jade-colored light roared furiously as well. "Hetien, that useless thing. Where did he go? Why did he spend so much effort? Did he really run to the ends of the earth? You bunch of vile creatures, what is the name of your planet?" Catfish Flood Dragon was taken aback. She shook her head and shut her mouth. Lord Xiancheng twitched his lips and grinned coldly as he turned to look at Princess Xianglu. Princess Xianglu clasped her hands behind her back, rolled her eyes, and said with a sigh, "You don't know where your son died? That's great. Why should I tell you which planet we are on? So that you can come here to settle the score with us. Do you think we are stupid or stupid? It doesn't matter if you are stupid, but don't ever think that we are as stupid as you, okay? The divine ray of 5 colors rippled abruptly. Princess Xianglu pointed her finger out, and the ray of 5 colors behind her abruptly transformed into 5 sword energies that towered into the sky, thrusting viciously toward the jade-colored light along with a jarring noise of air ripping. As long as the jade-colored light was destroyed, the man behind it would lose the spatial coordinate. No matter how strong the man was, he would not be able to find Myriad Immortals' planet directly. As for how to deal with the aftermath, Princess Zhongli's brows knitted into a tight frown. It was indeed a difficult thing to deal with. Who was the man behind Yu Hetian? Marquis Jian, who served the human emperor. What was his background? Someone must have known that Yu Hetian was here, and his father, Marquis Jian, would soon receive the news. Once he came here personally, how was he going to deal with the aftermath? Yu Hetian. Princess Xianglu said in a low voice, Great Yan Dynasty, Yu Hetian? Yu Qianqian, you bitch. A ferocious gleam flickered in Princess Zhongli's eyes as she cried out fiercely, I'll definitely slaughter your entire clan. While shouting, the 5-colored sword beams slashed viciously at the jade-colored light, ripping it into pieces. Countless jade-colored cold beams drifted in the air, and among them, a thumb-sized jade-colored light flickered and flickered. Like a living creature, it tried to flee. Princess Xianglu snorted coldly. She performed a strange incantation gesture, and suddenly, a thick layer of dark mist covered her forehead and lips. Then, she recited a few strange incantations under her breath that sounded like the roars of ghosts. Abruptly, a few clumps of ghost flames emerged from around her. She stretched her hand out and grabbed at those ghost flames. Accompanied by shrill ghost howls, the dark green ghost flames converged on Princess Zhongli's fingers, which were glinting with a phosphorescent glow. With a gentle tap of her finger, the ghost flames transformed into a bizarre rune the size of a red date, twisting and twitching like the face of a ghost. It was shot out from Princess Zhongli's fingertip, hitting the jade-colored light with great force. That jade-colored light was the thread of spirit sense left behind by Yu Hetian's father, Marquis Jian, in his soul. The rune of ghost flames unleashed by Princess Xianglu was the witch ghost curse, passed down from her mother's bloodline. It was a curse that originated from the ancient times, and was used by the ancestors when they were fighting against the evil ghosts. It was the cruelest, fiercest, and most ruthless curse technique. Princess Xianglu had encountered many fortuitous encounters, and her fleshly body and bloodline had been cleansed by Wu Qi with the innate energy. Vaguely, her body now possessed the innate will. Therefore, she was able to obtain more and more strange and mystic techniques from her bloodline. When the rune fused with the jade-colored light, a shrill and miserable howl came out from the jade-colored light. Marquis Jian cried out at the top of his voice, Ignorant Junior, how dare you use the ghost curse technique to trap me? How dare you? Ah! Somebody, bring the grand. Before Marquis Jian could finish his words, the jade-colored light suddenly exploded into pieces, and the voice of Marquis Jian could no longer be heard. Princess Xianglu clapped her hands, pulled out 3 communication jade slips from under her sleeve, and hastily told Marquis Jian everything that happened here. After that, she quickly crushed all 3 jade slips at the same time. Followed by a series of popping noise, 3 extremely faint streams of smoke flashed across the air and quickly disappeared without leaving a trace. Princess Xianglu said coldly, Lord Xiansheng, please help me ask Old Dragon King to bring his demon army to Ji City. I want to wash Yu Academy with blood. Gently tilting her chin up, Princess Xianglu sneered and said, regardless of whether this Yu Hetian is related to Yu Qianqian or not, how could she be so shameless to marry Wu Qi? Because of this, I'm going to punish her with the crime of having her entire clan beheaded. This Yu Hetian must be Yu Qianqian's accomplice. All of you have to testify for me, as he personally confessed that he is Yu Qianqian's distant cousin. How dare he plot against me? This is a treason. Catfish Flood Dragon stared blankly at Princess Xianglu. She had no idea why she was so sure that Yu Hetian was related to Yu Qianqian. Lord Xianqing smiled faintly, nodded his head and said, I'll go ask my father for help now. Princess, please come to Ji City at once. Princess Zhanglu narrowed her eyes and nodded her head lightly. She pulled up Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, and without giving them any antidote or healing, she transformed into a 5-colored beam and rushed into Star-Picking City, returning to Ji City through a teleportation formation. Yu Qianqian, even if Wu Qi can have so many wives and concubines, he can never marry an old woman like you. I'll definitely wipe out your entire Yu Academy today. Chapter 350. In the Great Southern Marsh, the pink divine ray emitted by Lao Ai collided with the thunderbolt transformed from Yuheda. The divine ray emitted by Lao Ai was soft and gentle, like the tears of a passionate woman. It came with a very strong ecstatic and bone-corroding bizarre force, intertwining with the thunderbolt inch by inch like a cup of aqua regia with honey added to it, slowly eroding and melting the power of the thunderbolt. On the other hand, the thunderbolt transformed from Yuheda was fierce, brutal, and tough. Every time it flickered, it was as if countless bombs were about to explode. However, after being enveloped by the pink divine ray, Yuheda managed to unleash 30 thunderbolts in a row within 100,000th of a second, trying to make them explode. But, every time before the power of the thunderbolt reached the critical point, the power of the thunderbolt would be drawn away by the pink divine ray, and failed to explode. The thunderbolt and the pink ray collided and tangled with each other in midair, producing deep, muffled booms that kept ringing out. Lao Ai sat cross-legged on the pink lotus throne with a solemn expression, his hands forming various Buddhist incantation gestures at an incredible speed. While unleashing an endless stream of pink divine ray to fight against Yuheda, he smiled at Yu Qianqian, who had an unsightly expression on her face, and said, Young miss of Yu clan, where did you find such a wild man? Are you really that confident that you can subdue him? TSK, you really don't know the immensity of the heaven and earth. You have no idea that most things in this world do not go as one wishes. Not allowing Yu Qianqian to answer, Lao Ai flicked his wrist and unleashed 3 pink thunderbolts. He chuckled and said, This wild man does look mighty and tall, but too bad that he is useless. Do you think he can satisfy young Miss Yu? I heard that young Miss Yu once offered her body to Wu Qi, but he rejected her. Is there a need for you to do that? I'm not afraid of anyone. Even if he is a vicious old virgin like you, Lao Ai is still interested in spending a night with you. 3 thunderbolts smashed forcefully onto the thunderbolt transformed from Yuheda. The pinkish thunderbolts exploded softly, and the sound of each explosion sounded like the soft moaning of a beautiful woman. The melancholic moaning that could shake one's soul and corrode one's bones could really make one's heart go soft and his internal organs itch. All the meridians and bones in his body felt like a snow lion that had encountered a blazing sun. They could not help but soften and lose all their strength. Yuheda, who had transformed into a thunderbolt and was desperately charging forward, had his body turned stiff. Even though he was protected by the fierce and pure yang thunderbolt, he was still affected by the moaning, causing his spirit to drop by a large margin. Yuheda bellowed furiously, What evil magic is this? How can you be so shameless? On the other side, when Yu Qianqian heard Lao Ai's flirting words, she could not help but berate him furiously, Lao Ai, you are really shameless. Lao Ai was smiling, as he did not take Yu Qianqian's words to heart. He chuckled and said, Shameless? In the future, he would make young Miss Yu despicable. The business of love between a man and a woman was the supreme heavenly Tao in the world. I think young Miss Yu has never tasted it before, right? This is not right. Young Miss Yu is at least 30 years old, isn't she? Yet, an old woman like her is still a virgin. This is Lao Ai's sin. With a crafty smile on his face, Lao Ai stared at Yu Qianqian, whose face had turned purple with anger. Shaking his head, he said, Young Miss Yu is an old spinster who no man wants. Yet, she is still a virgin at the age of 30. This is Lao Ai's sin, and this is Lao Ai's mistake. I, Lao Ai, am a man who cherishes flowers the most. Therefore, I will fulfill young Miss Yu's wish. Today, I'll let you enjoy the supreme and wonderful state of bliss. Yu Heda was so infuriated by Lao Ai's extremely shameless words that he roared furiously, "Die, you shameless bastard!" Yu Heda waved both hands, and a large dark cloud came rolling down from the sky. Numerous thunderbolts were seen rolling and rocking amidst the dark cloud, producing deep, muffled rumbles of thunder as they pressed down towards Lao Ai's head. While the dark cloud was still about 1 mile away from Lao Ai's head, silvery thunderbolts as thick as a water tank had already plunged down one after another, aiming straight towards Lao Ai's head. Laughing mockingly, Lao Ai casually pointed his finger up into the sky. Immediately, several dozens of naked girls flew up from the Wheel of Delight, waving their pipa and transforming back into the size of ordinary people. They sang and danced gracefully above Lao Ai's head. Pink, translucent petals kept falling from their bodies, and a dense mist towered up into the sky, blocking off all the thunderbolts that came smashing down from the sky. However, no matter how the thunderbolts struck and smashed, the mist could only roll and roll for a while at most, and was not really broken by the thunderbolts. The Wheel of Delight buzzed faintly, and the moans and moans of countless men and women could be heard coming out from it. Lao Ai's body was shivering as well. Tiny thunderbolts were bursting out from his pores. Although the thunderbolts above him had smashed onto the mist, some of the thunderbolts still managed to penetrate through the void and smash into Lao Ai's body. Surprised, Lao Ai nodded at Yu Heda and said, "You do have some abilities. A pretty boy who does not rely on his face to make a living can actually." Just as he said that, a few thumb-sized thunderbolts suddenly rushed out of Lao Ai's body, and blood sprayed out along with them. Wisps of blood could be seen coming out from the corner of Lao Ai's mouth as well. He forcefully swallowed the blood that had rushed up to his throat and into his stomach. Unknowingly, the thunderbolts had hurt Lao Ai's internal organs. However, Lao Ai had yet to figure out how the thunderbolts had entered his body. Exasperated, Lao Ai gave a furious roar. He rolled his eyes, and the Wheel of Delight behind him suddenly unleashed a vast pinkish divine ray, enveloping the area within 100 miles. Flowers and grasses sprouted out of nowhere on the flat ground, and countless pinkish lotus flowers bloomed gracefully from the bottom of a crystal-clear pool. Tall and straight Bodhi trees sprouted in all directions, and on every single Bodhi tree leaf, there was a beautiful girl who could fly up into the sky and dance gracefully. A strange fragrance was wafting and lingering in the air. Yu Qianqian, who was suddenly drawn into this strange space and inhaled a deep breath of the fragrance, shuddered. All of a sudden, her face turned red, and faint pinkish perspiration was seen dripping down from all over her body. Yu Qianqian was so frightened that she cried out hoarsely, "Heda, save me! This is..." Before Yu Qianqian could finish her words, she had completely lost her mind. Neatly, she tore off her clothes and moaned softly. With a charming smile on her face, she walked towards Lao Ai like a walking corpse. Lao Ai stared complacently at Yu Heda, who had transformed into a thunderbolt and kept darting back and forth in the void. He stretched out his left hand, beckoned at Yu Qianqian and said, "Come, come, come. I'll let you enjoy the boundless happiness today. This is the so-called pure land of ultimate bliss." With just a wave of his hand, Yu Qianqian's body suddenly turned blurry, and then she reappeared right next to Lao Ai. With one swift motion, Lao Ai grabbed Yu Qianqian and coiled her legs around his waist, then reached out his hand to untie his belt. Yu Heda was taken aback. "Lao Ai, if you dare to touch even a single hair of hers, I'll definitely beat you to death today," he roared with a stern voice. Lao Ai grabbed Yu Qianqian's left breast with his left hand, grinned hideously, and said, "Why would I stop from touching even a single hair of hers? I'm going to touch every part of her body today." A ripping sound rang out. Lao Ai had torn his belt, and even pulled off his pants. Yu Heda was taken aback. He roared furiously and revealed himself amidst the purple-blue thunderbolt. The soul of the Kuei ox was hovering amidst the dark clouds above his head, throwing its head back and roaring furiously. Yuheda performed a grabbing motion with both hands behind his back, and a purple-blue halberd emerged amidst a blinding light. The soul of the Kuei ox hovering above his head transformed into a massive thunderbolt amidst the dark clouds and fused with the halberd amidst a deafening thunderbolt. Yuheda snorted coldly as he fixed his eyes on Lao Ai, who was sitting on the pinkish lotus throne. Gripping the halberd tightly with both hands, he thrust it towards Lao Ai. The halberd tore through the air, bringing up countless 100 miles long thunderbolts that shot in all directions. Yuheda's entire body was enveloped in the intense thunderbolts, making him look like a small sun that was emitting endless light and heat. With a blink of his body, he came before Lao Ai, thrusting the halberd forcefully towards Lao Ai's chest. Die! Yuheda cried out lightly. Lao Ai's chest was ripped open, and a hole the size of a human head was pierced through the front and back of his body. A large amount of blood sprayed onto Yu Qianqian's naked body, turning her crimson. Lao Ai howled miserably. He grabbed Yu Qianqian's neck and threw her towards Yuheda. Yuheda was taken aback. Instinctively, he loosened his grip and caught Yu Qianqian in his arms. Unexpectedly, when Yu Qianqian was caught in his arms, she immediately transformed into a glinting pinkish skeleton. The pinkish skeleton let out a shrill cry, thrusting its arms and thrusting them forcefully into Yuheda's body. Four ripping noises were heard, as 4 holes were pierced through Yuheda's body, from which blood kept spraying out. His injury was even more serious than Lao Ai's. Suddenly, the pinkish skeleton disintegrated, and all the bone joints squeezed into Yuheda's body through the 4 holes, attaching themselves to his bones. Yuheda howled miserably and hoarsely with a skeleton moving through his flesh and blood. However, no matter how he struggled and howled, he could not move his body at all. The Wheel of Delight slowly expanded, while Lao Ai's body and the pinkish lotus throne under him grew larger at an incredible speed. In just a blink of an eye, Lao Ai had transformed into a huge figure that stood 100,000 feet tall. He stretched both hands out and performed a lotus incantation gesture. The severely wounded Yuheda was right in his palm, howling and struggling like an ant on a playground that could be crushed to death with just a light palm. Die now! Lao Ai stared coldly at Yuheda, who was struggling and howling furiously. He clasped both palms together, unleashing a large sheet of strong pinkish light that crushed Yuheda into pieces. At the same time, the halberd that Yuheda had thrown away just now suddenly flew up, transforming into a lightning bolt that pierced through Lao Ai's ribs and came out from his left shoulder. The attack pierced through Tao Wu's body. Tao Wu screamed miserably, and a large amount of blood gushed out of his 7 apertures. He could no longer maintain this bizarre state. He retracted the Wheel of Delight and fell heavily to the ground. Madman Shui rushed over with large strides and helped Lao Ai up. Lao Ai coughed out a mouthful of blood, and was about to say something when a jade-like beam shot out from the spot where Yuheda's fleshly body and soul were crushed, followed by the shadow of a fist. A man's voice resounded through the clouds, "Bastard! Heda, Hetien, where have you been? I've lost 2 of my sons today, and I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces." The fist shadow thrust out. Lao Ai had no time to defend himself, and his right chest was hit by the jade-like fist, piercing through his body. Lao Ai let out a miserable cry, and a pinkish beam shot out from his eyes, shattering the jade-like beam. After that, he leaped onto Yu Qianqian, who was lying on the ground, and cried out sternly, "My disciple, protect me. I need to use her true Yin to heal myself." A miserable howl rang out, and Yu Qianqian suddenly woke up. After that, painful cries, curses, and moans kept ringing out. 15 minutes later, a golden beam suddenly shot up into the sky, amidst which, one could vaguely see the silhouette of a lady with a slender figure. Yu Qianqian's extremely resentful voice echoed through the heaven and earth, "Lao Ai, I swear I'll kill you." Following that, Lao Ai's furious roar rang out, "Bitch, you actually have an immortal talisman protecting you? What a pity. That half of your true Yin is wasted." The golden beam moved at an incredible speed, leaving a long trail of flame behind as it flew towards Ji City. At the same time, Princess Zhangli had also returned to Ji City. She was deploying her army, preparing to besiege Yu Academy. Chapter 351. While Myriad Immortal's planet was in an uproar, Wu Qi and his company were hiding in a cave at the bottom of the ocean, looking nervously at the broken ruins around them. Fearing that some heaven immortals might have discovered the cave, Wu Qi recalled all the longbow men back into the spirit breeding ring, then killed Yan Xiaoqi and her company. He waited for a very, very long time, but did not find anything else. Only then did he carefully sneak out from the water cave, carefully giving the surroundings a thorough examination. The result left Wu Qi speechless. A giant deep-sea beast with a body of about 100 miles long, shaped like a great white shark but with horns on its head, had accidentally bumped into this coral reef. It brutally crushed the coral reef into pieces, then lay down lazily in a nearby undersea canyon. It was currently sleeping comfortably. The strength possessed by this giant beast was incredibly strong, as even the primordial runes Wu Qi deployed were shattered by its tremendous force. This made Wu Qi speechless for a while. Fortunately, this giant beast was only born with a strong fleshly body and an enormous strength, but it did not possess any sentience, and could not absorb natural energies to cultivate. Otherwise, another incredible demon beast would be born on Shui Yuan planet. After a brief examination and finding that there was no other commotion in the surroundings, and there was no suffocating immortal pressure emanating from a heaven immortal anywhere near or far, Wu Qi and his company sneaked out of the ocean like mice in the night, changing their clothes and disguises stealthily. They crawled out from the pitch-black ocean and returned to the surface of Shui Yuan planet. Although they were surrounded by a vast expanse of white snow and barren grass, the sunlight, the air, the whistling gales, and the snowflakes still made Wu Qi and his company throw their heads back and laugh happily. However, after a few moments of laughter, Wu Qi hastily asked everyone to shut their mouths. Shui Yuan planet was not a very big planet, and they did not want to provoke those few heaven immortals here. With their current strength, they were confident that they could assassinate one or two heaven immortals through crafty plots. But if they were to fight head-on, any heaven immortal could easily kill all of them. Perhaps, only Wu Qi had a chance to escape alive. After sternly warning everyone to keep a low profile, Wu Qi and the others each stepped on a dim sword light and flew to the nearest city at the slowest speed. It seemed those heaven immortals had given up on hunting Wu Qi and his companions, and peace had returned to Shui Yuan planet. While flying, Wu Qi and his company saw some mortals from Shui Yuan planet working in the snowfield. Apart from the North and South poles, all the other places on Shui Yuan planet were still solid continents under the thick layer of ice and snow. Shui Yuan planet also had crustal activity, volcanoes and lava, and there were hot springs gushing out from the ground. In places where the underground flame activity was stronger, hot springs would burst out from the ground and melt the ice and snow, creating a climate that was similar to spring on other planets in a small area. In Shui Yuan planet, these places were considered as rare blessed lands. Some smaller cities with weaker overall strength would specifically choose such places to build their cities. With the protection from the heat of the underground flame, they would not have to suffer from the harsh wind and snow, and could save a lot of expenses in constructing defensive mechanisms for the cities. After traveling for half a day, Wu Qi and his company saw a small mountain range that stretched over 100 miles in length ahead of them. Wisps of white smoke could be seen rising from it, and a faint smell of sulfur could be smelled from afar. Riding on their flying swords, they flew over and saw a small city, measuring several miles in both width and length, standing quietly in the middle of the green mountain range. Near the city were villages and small towns. The mountain range blocked the wind and snow, and hot springs gushed out from the mountains. The scorching hot water dispelled the bitter cold, while large tracts of farmland were planted on the dark, fertile soil. Thanks to the large number of hot springs in the mountains, this area of several hundred miles in circumference had actually turned into an excellent land of fish and rice. Tender green sprouts could be seen in the farmlands, and fishing boats could be seen sailing back and forth on the lakes. On the mountains that were covered with lush vegetation, there were even large tracts of fruit trees. At this moment, the fruit trees were bearing fruits, and as far as the eyes could see, the world was filled with specks of pale yellow fruits. On Shuiyuan planet, a small city like this could only make a living by selling agricultural products. Because of the geothermal heat, it was impossible for this place to produce the spirit herbs of ice and snow, which were unique to Shuiyuan planet, and there were no energy stone veins of ice and snow. Basically, the few special products that were related to ice and snow on Shuiyuan planet could not be found here. Therefore, the small cultivator clans here could only use a large amount of agricultural products to trade with other major powers and clans for the materials they needed for their cultivation. The grains and fruits they grew were supplied to the other major powers, so that they could feed the mortals under their rule. On the other hand, those major powers would give them a certain amount of energy stones and spirit pills, so that the cultivators from these small clans could cultivate hard. This symbiotic relationship had been going on for several tens of thousands of years on Shuiyuan planet, and if nothing major happened, it would continue for a very long time. Wu Qi and his company flew over one village and small town after another. When the mortals below saw the sword beams whistling over their heads, they knelt on the ground and dared not to raise their heads. Cultivators were supreme beings, and mortals were just mortals. The cultivators of Shuiyuan planet could deal with any mortals at will. They had absolute power over their lives, and no one would care if they did anything they wanted. Therefore, none of these mortals dared to raise their heads, fearing that they might offend Wu Qi and his company, and bring an innocent calamity upon themselves. All the villages, towns, and farmlands within several hundred miles of this small mountain range belonged to the Tian clan, which was a small cultivator clan located in the small city in front of them, Tianle City. Tian clan was a small clan whose overall strength was the weakest on Shuiyuan planet. They had a few Jin Dan cultivators, and over a dozen Xiantian cultivators. As for those below them, there was nothing much to say. According to the rules of the world of cultivators, Wu Qi and his company walked slowly into Tianle City after they stopped before the east gate. Their group consisted of 5 nascent divinity cultivators, Yan Qijuan, a nascent soul cultivator, Xiao Kuo, who was hiding his actual cultivation base, and Wu Qi, a monster who did not even know how to classify his overall strength. When they entered the city, Xiao Kuo pulled out a jade slip, drew a few incantation gestures on it, and threw it out. The jade slip transformed into a beam of white light, shot up into the sky, and vanished in an instant. Xiao Kuo said coolly, "I wonder if those people I brought here are dead or not. If they are still alive, let them find a place to hide themselves. If they are all dead, it will be a good explanation." Zhao Kuo gave True Lord Windbreaking and the other 2 great Zhao's imperial advisors a look. Wu Qi smiled and said, "Don't worry, second brother. If they are all dead, I'll be your witness. It was the heaven immortals of Shuiyuan planet who killed those foreign cultivators, and you were just caught in the crossfire. Fortunately, the 3 imperial advisors came to your rescue, and that's how you managed to escape." The 3 imperial advisors laughed dryly, and when Zhao Kuo laughed, it looked more like he was crying. However, when he scanned the storage ring with his divine will and saw the 3 immortal item-grade jade rings hidden inside, he immediately puffed out his chest, and his mood became much better. Before entering the city, Wu Qi was still using a mystic art to sense the surrounding space of Shuiyuan planet. In the sky less than 20 miles above the ground, there was a dense layer of restrictive barrier that isolated the space, preventing the grand universal teleportation formation from functioning. If they wanted to leave Shuiyuan planet, they would have to use a planetary ship to break through this barrier. But when he thought of those heaven immortals on Shuiyuan planet, Wu Qi shook his head dejectedly. Traveling across the starry sky with a planetary ship while being hunted by heaven immortals. Perhaps, Jiangxingzi might have such a long life and good luck, but Wu Qi felt that it was better not to attempt such a dangerous task. He murmured under his breath, "We'll just find a place here and cultivate in peace. Let's see what you can do to us." Tianle City was not a large city, measuring 4 miles in both width and length. Just the mansion of Tian clan alone took up 1/4 of the city. The other districts were separated by 2 broad streets, 2 horizontal and 2 vertical streets. The residents of the city were all reputable merchants in Tian La City, or some in-laws of Tian clan. Apart from that, there were only 2 inns that were not too large in the city, and some brothels and taverns. Cultivators who came from outside to purchase food, fish, meat, fruits, and some other crops would be treated as distinguished guests by Tian clan, and would stay in Tian clan's mansions. Therefore, the 2 inns in the city only catered to some traveling merchants and idlers from other cities. Although the conditions were not bad, they were not that good either. Wu Qi and his company found a clean small courtyard in a garden inn located at the east of the city and settled down. With the hospitality of the innkeeper and the waiter, Wu Qi and his company settled down in the courtyard. After that, Wu Qi went to pay a visit to Xiong Wanling and He Qianqiu. Wu Qi had a very good impression of these 2 old demon kings, who could still protect Yan Qijuan in a desperate situation. Without saying a word, he entered their room and gave each of them 30 blood crystals and soul crystals, which he obtained from the 3 heaven immortals, to each of them. Xiong Wanling and He Qianqiu had devoured countless cultivators, demon beasts, and other living beings, so they were people who knew what was good for them. The blood crystals and soul crystals given by Wu Qi were filled with immortal energy, and contained a very magical power. Both of them recognized that they were the essences refined from the flesh, blood, and souls of heaven immortals. Xiong Wanling cried out immediately, "You've refined those 3 mongrels. TSK, TSK, do you have a heavenly flame with you?" He Qianqiu gave Xiong Wanling a glare. He put away the blood crystals and soul crystals, cupped his fist and said to Wu Qi, "Duke of Tianyun, if you need anything in the future, I'll definitely do my best to help you." "Old bear, why are you still standing there like an idiot?" Xiong Wanling smacked his lips and finally came to his senses. He cupped his fist at Wu Qi and said casually, "What the white bird said is right. If you need our help in the future, just tell us." TSK, TSK, with these, I'm afraid we'll soon be able to." Xiong Wanling smiled so widely that his eyes narrowed into 2 lines. Wu Qi smiled faintly. Without saying anything, he bid them farewell and left. With these blood crystals and soul pearls, as long as the 2 old demons could digest them, they would definitely step into peak stage nascent divinity realm. With that, Wu Qi would have 2 more powerful helpers. Once Wu Qi figured out a way to help them transcend their thunder tribulation, with the help of 2 heaven immortals who were on friendly terms with him, Wu Qi's forces would be further boosted. After a moment of pondering, Wu Qi summoned True Lord Windbreaking and the other 2 heaven immortals, and gave each of them 30 soul pearls and blood pearls. The 3 of them were struck with wild joy, and hastily thanked Wu Qi. Their resentment towards being forcibly subdued by Wu Qi was reduced by 70 to 80%, leaving only a little bit of unwillingness. After all, it was not easy to obtain the blood crystals and soul crystals of heaven immortals. It was extremely difficult to kill a celestial immortal. After everything was done, when Wu Qi was about to find himself a room and quickly improve the cultivation base of 10 innate Jin Dan by swallowing blood crystals and soul crystals, the manager of Garden Inn came to pay him a visit with an old man and 2 middle-aged men. Before the manager could introduce them, the old man, who possessed the cultivation base of late-stage Jin Dan realm, had already cupped his fist and bowed deeply to Wu Qi. "Senior, this junior is bold enough to visit you, please forgive me," Yi Futian said. Chapter 352. Looking at the old man, who was wearing a respectful expression and had carefully retracted his aura, fearing that it might cause a misunderstanding, Wu Qi nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to be so courteous. You are the owner of this city, and logically speaking, I should be the one paying you a visit." Then, he pointed at the guest hall located at the north side of the courtyard, smiled and said, "Since fellow Taoist is here, please come in and have some tea." The manager of Garden Inn ran out happily, shouting and yelling at the waiter to fetch the best spring water on the mountaintop to serve tea to the guests. Meanwhile, the old man and 2 middle-aged men bowed respectfully at Wu Qi, then strode into the hall with a cautious and respectful expression, not daring to show any neglect. Xiong Wanling and the other 4 nascent divinity old demons were hiding in their own rooms, as they had no interest in dealing with a small fry of Jin Dan realm. Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo were curious. Without waiting for Wu Qi to greet them, they walked straight out and sat on the main seats in the hall. Especially Xiao Kuo. With a cheeky smile on his face, he crossed his legs and looked at the 3 men sitting next to him in a leisurely manner, his eyes narrowed into 2 fine lines. As the main seat in the hall was taken by Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo, Wu Qi had no choice but to sit on a large chair opposite the old man. After that, he nodded and said with a smile, "I am Daoist Bai, and these are my uncle masters, Daoist Yan and Daoist Jun. May I know your names, fellow Daoists?" Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo nodded and greeted Wu Qi. The old man and the 2 middle-aged men quickly rose to their feet, cupping their fists and bowing to them. Cautiously, they looked at Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo. Amidst the dark mist behind Wu Qi's back, the tiny flying sword was still darting back and forth like a thief, yet Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo did not show any unusual signs. Although they were Wu Qi's seniors, they did not show any unusual signs of Jin Dan realm. Clearly, they were all nascent soul cultivators. A trace of excitement could be seen on the old man's face as he respectfully introduced them to Wu Qi and his companions. The old man was the current clan leader of the Tian clan, Tian Zhu. The 2 middle-aged men were his 2 sons, Tian He and Tian Dao. Wu Qi snickered at the side. This family deserved to be the masters of Tianla City. Even their names were inseparable from the crops. After listening to Tian Zhu's introduction, Wu Qi leaned forward slightly and said with a faint smile, "May I know what brings Patriarch Tian here?" Tian Zhu rubbed his palms together. Cautiously, he gave Yan Qijuan a look, who sat there motionlessly and gave off the air of an emperor, and Xiao Kuo, who had his legs crossed and looked like a foppish young master. Laughing dryly, he said, "Junior." Wu Qi waved his hand and said with a smile, "Patriarch Tian, please don't keep calling me Junior. It sounds really uncomfortable." Hastily, Tian Zhu corrected himself and said, I understand. Clearing his throat, Tian Zhu smiled and said, "Just now, I heard from my clansmen that a few seniors have come to Tianla City. Naturally, I would like to pay them a visit." May I know the purpose of your visit?" With a roll of his eyes, Wu Qi came up with a lie. He smiled and said, "Oh, we are from Thousand Waves planet. We are ordered to collect some rare spirit herbs found in Shui Yuan planet. But, we are unlucky this time, as we bumped into a few Heaven Immortal seniors, who made a big fuss and sealed off all the entrances and exits. Do we dare to argue with them? Therefore, we can only stay in Shui Yuan planet and see when we can go back." Laughing bitterly, Wu Qi shook his head, sighed, and said, "I heard that Snowflake City and White Frost City were destroyed by someone recently. We were staying in Snowdrift City, and we were wondering if those people were targeting the 4 largest cities in Shui Yuan planet. If that is the case, we can no longer stay in Snowdrift City. That's why we came to Tianla City to lie low for a while." At this moment, Yan Qijuan chimed in, "Tianla City does not attract any attention. I don't think anyone will come looking for trouble in Tianla City." Tianla City was the closest to Snowdrift City. Therefore, it was reasonable for Wu Qi to say that they were staying in Snowdrift City at the beginning. In order to avoid any danger in Snowdrift City that might endanger them, they decided to stay in a small, remote city. This was also a reasonable explanation. Wu Qi smiled and said, "We found Tianla City to be a beautiful place, and it has the taste of the countryside. Therefore, we decided to stay here for a few days. Once the commotion subsides and the Grand Universal Teleportation Formation can be used again, we will return to Thousand Waves planet as soon as possible. Is there anything I can help you with, Clan Leader Tian?" Upon hearing that Wu Qi and his company were from Thousand Waves planet, and they were ordered to collect spirit herbs in Shui Yuan planet, the faces of Tian Zhu and his family of 3 immediately bloomed with smiles. Tian Zhu quickly smiled and said, "So, you are the seniors from Thousand Waves planet. No wonder you have such a strong cultivation base. As a matter of fact, the reason why I pay you a visit this time is because I have something to ask of you. However, if my words have offended you in any way, please forgive me, forgive me. Wu Qi gave Yan Qijuan and Xiao Kuo a quick glance. Yan Qijuan said coolly, never mind, just say what you want to say. We are not unreasonable people. We are fellow heaven immortals, and we will be staying in Tianlu City for some time in the near future. If there is anything we can help you with, we will be more than happy to do so. But, it is better that this matter does not involve those few heaven immortals. Tianju was overjoyed. He and his 2 sons quickly rose to their feet, cupped their fists and bowed as they said, we won't involve them, we won't involve them. This matter has absolutely nothing to do with those few heaven immortals. Seniors, if you don't mind, this is a dispute between us, Tianlu City, and the Lin clan on the other side of the mountain ridge. Lin clan. Upon hearing the name, Yan Qijuan's face turned unsightly. Instinctively, he thought of the Lin clan in Snowflake City. For the sake of some upper-grade energy stones, Lin Qiulua, that crazy woman, had hunted Yan Qijuan down and nearly killed him. Even though Lin Qiulua, Lin clan, and even immortal Chang Wu had suffered the cruelest revenge, Yan Qijuan still felt like he was holding back his anger. Lin clan. Wu Qi looked at Tianju thoughtfully, then asked in a neither heavy nor light tone. Tianju took a step forward, lowered his voice and said, this Lin clan has nothing to do with the Lin clan in Snowflake City. But, as both clans share the same surname, this Lin clan has been trying to curry favor with the Lin clan in Snowflake City. Over the years, they have accumulated some friendship. Intentionally, Wu Qi tightened his face and said with a cold grin, Lin clan in Snowflake City, humph. Tianju's expression flickered, and he quickly said, Senior, please listen to me. A few days ago, I received news that Snowflake City was destroyed, and all 3 major clans in the city were wiped out. Lin clan of Snowflake City is completely wiped out. Therefore, this Lin clan has lost its backer. If not for that, with the meager foundation of Tianlu City, how could I dare to compete with them? He exchanged a glance with Yan Qijuan, and the latter nodded slowly. Currently, he had a problem with the surname Lin clan, and whenever he heard it, he would feel uneasy. On top of that, this Lin clan was indeed related to the Lin clan in Snowflake City. Therefore, they should not blame him for being ruthless. With a faint smile on his face, Wu Qi crossed his legs as well. Coincidentally, the innkeeper served them some fragrant tea. After a short while, Wu Qi picked up the teacup and took a sip of the fragrant tea, then turned to Tianju and asked, all right, there's no harm in me touching this Lin clan. I wonder what is the reason behind the dispute between clan leader Tian and them. Tianju pondered for a brief moment, then stretched out 5 fingers toward Wu Qi and said, if seniors can help me dispel the wild ambition of this Lin clan, I'll give you 50% of all the profits. What do you say? Tianju looked nervously at Wu Qi, blinking his eyes. Instead of telling him what exactly the matter was, he first told Wu Qi the ratio of the profits. Wu Qi was immediately enlightened. He smiled and said, so, the 2 clans have a dispute because they found a treasure? The treasure should be in this mountain, and it happens to be on the boundary line between the 2 clans' lands, right? Spirit herb. That doesn't look like it. Could it be an energy stone mine? A fire element energy stone mine? That doesn't look like it either. Could it be an ice element energy stone mine? A strange gleam flickered in Wu Qi's eyes as he stared at Tianju and his sons, whose faces had turned deathly pale. He smiled and said, this place is filled with underground fire, so it can only give birth to a fire element energy stone mine. But, if it is a fire element energy stone mine, with the characteristics of the cultivation technique you're cultivating, once you're stained with the aura of fire, your aura will definitely be impure. But now, the aura emanating from your bodies is as cold as before, without even the slightest impurity. Therefore, this is an ice element energy stone mine that is formed right next to underground fire and lava. Yan Qijuan and Zhao Kuo's eyes went wide at the same time as they stared at Wu Qi in astonishment. Judging from the panicked expression on the faces of Tianju and his sons, they immediately knew that Wu Qi was right. Lifting up the teacup and taking a sip, Wu Qi fiddled with the lid of the teacup and said smilingly, "An ice element energy stone mine that is formed right next to underground fire and lava. Rare, very rare. Since it has an opposing element of yin and yang, it must be accompanied by an extraordinary treasure." Coldly looking at Tianju, Tianhe, and Tiandao, who had returned to their seats, Wu Qi said in a cold voice, "Do the three of you really think that with the overall strength of Tian clan, they can keep an extraordinary treasure like this? Do you think they can enjoy all the benefits of an energy stone mine like this?" Beads of sweat rolled down Tianju's forehead like raindrops. Trembling, he stared at Wu Qi and stammered, "Why you? Wu Qi breathed out a long sigh and said, "You should not have come to us. Since you've come to us, then, Tianhe, Tiandao, take my uncle master as your master. Give this energy stone mine to us, and we'll guarantee you a rich and prosperous future." With a slap on his forehead, Wu Qi's nascent soul flew out and hovered above Wu Qi's head, blinking its eyes as it stared at Tianju and his sons. Yan Qijuan was struck with terror. He sprung to his feet and cried out, "Little brat, when did you form your nascent soul? You? How old are you now?" Zhao Kuo was screaming in fear as well. He pointed his finger at the Jin Dan anomaly behind Wu Qi's back and screamed, "Your Jin Dan anomaly hasn't disappeared yet, and your nascent soul. Am I seeing a ghost?" Wu Qi laughed dryly. He kneaded the dark mist behind his back into a ball of dark pellet, then swallowed it. He laughed dryly and said, "I just formed this nascent soul by accident a couple of days ago. I have no idea how I did it. Ah, ha ha ha. This Jin Dan anomaly is a good thing to fool people. You just haven't seen through my true cultivation base, have you?" As he laughed, dark mist burst out from all the pores on Wu Qi's body, forming a dark cloud behind his back. Within the cloud, 5 flying swords were seen flying and piercing in the air, looking rather shifty. With the nascent soul hovering above his head, and the Jin Dan anomaly behind his back, both Yan Qijuan and Zhao Kuo groaned helplessly, then slumped back to their seats. Tianju's eyes darted back and forth. He was starting to regret coming to Wu Qi and his sons. If he had to give them too many benefits, his heart would ache. But, while he was still pondering, a ripple of nascent soul energy suddenly came down from the sky above Tianle City. Following the ripple, an old, complacent voice of an old man rang out, "Old Tian, that treasured land belongs to Lin clan now." Rumble. A thunderbolt struck down from the sky, smashing viciously onto the ancestral mansion of Tian clan in the city. Chapter 353. The ancestral mansion of Tian clan in Tianle City occupied nearly 1/4 of the city. It was built with green bricks and black tiles, and all the walls were painted snow white. The paint was made from a special product of Shui Yuan planet, a clay that was as fine as jade and translucent as crystal. After it solidified, it became as smooth as a mirror, glinting brilliantly. Under the reflection of the sun, it looked like a piece of white jade, delicate and exquisite, giving off an air of elegance unique to cultivators. With a casual strike from an early-stage nascent soul earth immortal hovering in midair, a mansion like this was struck down by a green thunderbolt. The roof tiles cracked, the walls collapsed, and many buildings in Tian clan's ancestral mansion collapsed one after another. More than half of the courtyard was smashed to smithereens by the thunderbolt. When Wu Qi and the others flew up into the sky and looked into the distance, they could still see countless severed limbs falling from the sky, their blood and flesh turning the sky red. Tianju was trembling with rage. Standing on the roof of Garden House, he stared blankly at the ancestral mansion that had turned into a historical site in just a blink of an eye. 2 lines of hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Wu Qi shook his head, sighed, and said, "Forget it. The people of Lin clan are much faster than you. Hurry up and let your sons acknowledge us as their masters." We can help you avenge the annihilation of your clan. Your sons are still young and strong, and they can give birth to many more descendants in the future. Tianju turned to look at Wu Qi with a trembling body, then dragged his sons and cried incoherently, Tian He, Tian Dao, acknowledge us as your masters. Quick, acknowledge us as your masters. Oh heavens, how could this be? The nascent soul Earth Immortal off in the distance did not notice Wu Qi and his company. He laughed aloud, then waved his hand and unleashed another thunderbolt from the sky. A loud boom rang out, and a cloud of dust rose high into the sky. Amidst the thunderbolt, Tian clan's ancestral mansion, along with a few other nearby mansions, were completely smashed to pieces. Not even a single beam or pillar remained intact. Laughing coldly, the nascent soul Earth Immortal casually pointed out a sword beam and killed the dozens of servant girls and retainers who were crying and screaming as they fled from Tian clan's ancestral mansion. Then, the sword light, which was less than 10 feet long and had a pale yellow color and was mixed with impure impurities, swept across the broken bricks and tiles of the Tian family's ancestral mansion, killing all the people who were still alive under the bricks and tiles. Tian He and Tian Dao dropped to their knees before Yan Qijuan and gave him a heavy kowtow. Master! Yan Qijuan smiled indifferently, waved his hand and said coolly, never mind, get up. In the future, Tian clan might become the overlord of Shui Yuan planet. Who can say for sure? A cold gleam flickered in Yan Qijuan's eyes as he casually fished out 2 storage rings and threw them over to Tian He and Tian Dao. Tian He and Tian Dao took over the storage rings, and they were immediately struck dumb with fear. Storage rings were treasures that many Earth Immortals in Liyuan Galaxy did not have. The Tian family had a few brocade storage pouches, which were considered as family heirlooms. As for storage rings, they had only heard about them in legends. Only half immortals of the primordial soul realm and true heaven immortals were qualified to use such treasures. They tried to penetrate their divine senses into the ring, and sure enough, it was a storage ring. The enormous storage space inside made the 2 inexperienced cultivators feel dizzy, and they nearly fainted to the ground. They stared blankly at the energy stones piled up like a small hill inside the ring, as well as a few flying swords of upper-grade magical item level. They stammered and could not say a word for a long while. When Tianju saw the storage rings that Yan Qijuan threw over to his sons, his heart skipped a beat. They were rich. Tian clan had found a great backer this time. Although he was just a wealthy man from the countryside, and his knowledge was rather shallow, Tianju knew very well that the power that could give a storage ring to the disciples he had just served must be a great power with a very strong background. Perhaps, only the core disciples from those immortal sects who stood at the very top of the minor heavenly circle realm could afford to spend so much money like this. With a thump, Tianju dropped to his knees before Wu Qi and said, Senior, please uphold justice for all the members of Tian clan. Although his sons had just acknowledged Yan Qijuan as their master, and although Wu Qi had told him that Yan Qijuan was his martial uncle, Tianju instinctively felt that among all the people present, Wu Qi was the most frightening and unpredictable one. Therefore, he dropped to his knees before Wu Qi, begging Wu Qi to uphold justice for him with a hoarse voice. Immediately, Tianju's cries alerted a few people hovering in the sky several miles away. The Earth Immortal turned around and looked in Tianju's direction with a surprised look. Standing right next to him was an old man with gray hair. Immediately, he pointed at Tianju and cried out, Clan Leader Mo, he is Tianju. I only hope that Clan Leader Mo can help Lin Kexian kill Tianju and seize the foundation of Tian clan. Then, Clan Leader Mo will take 80% of the benefits. Smiling, Wu Qi shook his head at Tianju and said, Look, how generous is the clan leader of Lin clan. He invited a foreign aid here, and without saying a word, he gave away 80% of the benefits. The greater the overall strength, the more benefits one can get. Tianju, just now, you said that you want to share the benefits with us. That's because we are kind people. If it were some other cultivators from the outside world, they would have slaughtered every single member of Tian clan and taken all the benefits for themselves. Tianju's face turned deathly pale, and cold sweat kept breaking out from all over his body. Trembling, he stared at Wu Qi and murmured, "Well, we have to talk about justice and credibility, don't we?" This time, Wu Qi did not laugh. Instead, Zhao Kuo and Yan Qijuan burst out laughing. Xiong Wanling and the few old demon kings, who had just come out to watch the show, were rocking back and forth with laughter. Supremacy 5 Mountains roared with laughter and said, "Justice and credibility? Bullshit. We always knew that the one with the biggest fist is the justice, and the one with the flying sword has credibility. Slaughter a city, and within 1,000 miles, there will be justice, slaughter a country, and within 10,000 miles, there will be credibility." True Lord Windbreaking said in an indifferent tone, "Have you, Tian clan, become muddle-headed from farming? Have you eaten too many vegetables? Do you think a cultivator of Tao would talk about justice and credibility with you? What a load of bullshit. What a stinking bullshit. Even until today, your Tian clan is still alive." That makes sense. Who would come here and kill a clan of cultivators who only know how to farm for no reason? The faces of Tianju, Tianhe, and Tian Dao blushed. They bowed their heads shamefully, as if they felt that their behavior was indeed a little petty. Without sufficient overall strength and without finding out the background of Wu Qi and his companions, they foolishly came here and asked for an equal share of the benefits. Fortunately, Wu Qi and his companions were not evil cultivators from the Fiend League. Otherwise, before clan leader Mo could strike, Tian clan would have already been wiped out. Wu Qi and his companions were whispering to each other, and did not pay any attention to clan leader Lin Kexian and clan leader Mo relying on the fact that he was backed by an earth immortal of nascent soul realm. Lin Kexian immediately flew over with a few of his clan members, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. They stopped at a place less than 500 feet away from Wu Qi and his companions. Lin Kexian, who had an eagle nose, deep eyes, and thin lips, looked like a short-lived ghost, pointed his finger at Tianju, who was kneeling on the roof, and said with a cold grin, "Old man Tian, you and I have been fighting against each other all our lives. This time, your Tian clan is destined to cease to exist. TSK, have you lost your mind or something? Are you going to kneel there and beg for mercy?" Wu Qi gave Lin Kexian a cold glance, who was acting all high and mighty, and pulled Tianju up from the ground. He smiled faintly and said, "Lin Kexian? I'm a fortune teller, and I've predicted that you will die today. Tell me, am I right or not?" Lin Kexian was taken aback. Pointing his finger at Wu Qi, he let out a long laugh and was about to break out into curses. But before he could say anything, Zhao Kuo suddenly teleported right in front of Lin Kexian, punched his dantian, pulled out his Jin Dan, and crushed it to pieces. Lin Kexian's body suddenly expanded, then exploded into pieces amidst a dazzling white light. Vaguely, the crowd could hear the crazy battle cries of millions of soldiers, and in the next moment, Lin Kexian's soul was shattered into wisps of smoke. Zhao Kuo gave a cold snort. Suddenly, a white clump of battle aura burst out from his body, as blades, spears, swords, halberds, and all sorts of weapons shot out from it. The few clan members brought here by Lin Kexian did not even have the time to let out a miserable cry before they were shredded into meat paste by countless weapons. Far off in the distance, clan leader Mo, who was hovering motionlessly above the Tian clan's ancestral mansion, had his eyeballs nearly popped out from his eye sockets. He stared at Zhao Kuo, who suddenly teleported forward, and cried out in shock, "Teleportation divine ability. Senior, are you a half-immortal of nascent divinity realm? Senior, please forgive me. Please spare my life." Clan leader Mo could only let out a miserable howl, but Xiong Wanling had already teleported right next to him soundlessly. With a single slap of his two huge bare paws, clan leader Mo was crushed into a meat pie. Xiong Wanling licked the blood and flesh on his palms, then laughed and said, "I don't even know your name, and you're dead just like that. I, a mere early-stage nascent soul cultivator, dares to act so arrogantly before me?" Tianju, Tianhe, and Tian Dao were trembling with fear. They turned to look at Wu Qi and the others standing next to them with terror. Nascent divinity cultivators. Even the patriarch of the strongest clan in Shui Yuan planet only possessed the cultivation base of nascent soul realm. Apart from the heaven immortals who supported those clans, no clan in Shui Yuan planet had such a supreme power. And this time, Tian clan actually had a group of nascent divinity half-immortals. Tian Ju was shocked, and at the same time, his heart was bursting with joy. According to Wu Qi, this group of nascent divinity cultivators were ordered to come to Shui Yuan planet to collect spirit herbs and spirit herbs. Who else could order a nascent divinity half-immortal? A heaven immortal. Only a heaven immortal could order a nascent divinity half-immortal. Tian clan was now rich, truly rich. What was the death of a few clansmen after attaching themselves to a heaven immortal? According to Wu Qi, Tian He and Tian Dao were still young, and they could still reproduce. Not to mention Tian He and Tian Dao, even Tian Ju himself was still young at heart. He felt that he could still contribute to the reproduction of his clan, and that he could still marry several dozens of wives and give birth to hundreds of children. For a moment, Tian Ju became extremely respectful. Carefully, he bowed at Wu Qi and the others and said, "Seniors, the land of treasures is located in the secret valley at the peak of Mount Tianlin. Please follow me there." But, about Lin clan. Wu Qi pointed at Tian He and Tian Dao and said, "Tian He, Tian Dao, bring these two seniors to Lin clan and execute their entire clan." Then, Wu Qi assigned True Lord Windbreaking and Supremacy 5 mountains to follow Tian He and Tian Dao. When Tian He and Tian Dao realized that they had a nascent divinity half-immortal as their backer, they were so overjoyed that they had long forgotten their own names. Happily, they brought the two nascent divinity cultivators with them. Riding on their flying swords, they flew across Mount Tianlin. On the other side of the mountain was Lin clan's territory. Next to the tallest peak of Mount Tianlin, next to a hot spring, was a pitch-dark cave, which was spraying out a threatening cold air. Wu Qi and the others were standing next to the cave, frowning as they stared at the entrance, which had just been opened. Chapter 354. Tianlin Mountain was named after the natural dividing line between Tian clan and Lin clan. The southern part of the mountain was the territory of Tian clan, while the northern part was the territory of Lin clan. The main peak of Tianlin Mountain was over 10,000 feet tall. Because of the many geothermal hot springs in the vicinity, the peak was covered with lush greenery, and there were quite a few fountains and waterfalls. It was a very beautiful scenery. Right on the west side of the main peak, in a valley that was over 10 miles long, over 30 hot springs had been gurgling out with hot water. The hot water had been flowing for years, nourishing a rich and fertile area of farmlands. A few days ago, a small-scale earthquake occurred in Tianlin Mountain. It was nothing serious, but a gap was opened up in a cliff in the valley, revealing a long and narrow cave entrance, about 70 to 80 feet tall. The cave was bitterly cold, with chilly winds constantly blowing out from it. The hot spring near the cave entrance had been frozen by a thick layer of white ice. Hot and cold water vapors clashed against each other, causing heavy snow to fall in the valley, making it look like the middle of winter. Wu Qi and the others stood at the entrance of the cave. True Lord Windbreaking and Supremacy 5 mountains had already returned. It did not take them much effort to kill all the members of Lin clan. Under the guidance of Tian He and Tian Dao, without alerting anyone, it took them less than the time to finish a pot of tea to wipe out all the members of Lin clan. When they came back, Wu Qi and the others had not yet entered the cave. The cold wind blowing out from the cave contained an abundance of water elemental energies. The dense water elemental energies condensed into fist-sized energy balls in the air, invisible to the naked eye. These energy balls shot out at high speed and hit on the bodies and faces of Wu Qi and his company, causing them to feel a slight pain on their skin and flesh. Wu Qi took a deep breath, and the incorporeal chilly wind blowing out from the cave suddenly turned into a white mist that could be seen with naked eyes. The mist swirled and produced faint whistling noises, then drilled into Wu Qi's body through his pores. 10 innate Jin Dan quickly absorbed the natural energies. To Wu Qi's surprise, he found out that the quality of the natural energies in this place was extremely high, vaguely approaching the boundary between the Hotian and Xiantian realms. Anyone who could cultivate here would be able to increase their cultivation speed by more than 10 times. However, the natural energy here was pure water element, which was only suitable for the natives of Shui Yuan planet who were cultivating with ice element cultivation technique. Tianju cautiously glanced at Wu Qi, who was shrouded in the white mist, and said in a low voice, "Seniors, this is the treasured land that our Tian clan and Lin clan are fighting for. We once went in to investigate, and discovered that the rocks inside were covered in thick ice. Countless ice-attributed spiritual stones were hidden in the rock stratum under the Xianbing. We've gone in for about 3 to 5 kilometers, and the number of spirit stones we've seen is in the hundreds of thousands." Wu Qi nodded and said in a low voice, "Let's go in and take a look." Although he said that he was going to have a look, Wu Qi first took out 36 pre-crafted formation discs from Black Dragon's spirit ring, assembled them together, and embedded a large amount of energy stones into them. With that, he deployed a 3-in-1, tri-primary illusory moon slaughtering formation outside the cave entrance, which was a combination of a maze formation, an illusory formation, and a killing formation. The speed at which he deployed the formation was very fast. In just 15 minutes, the entire valley was enveloped by the vast white mist that emanated from the formation. Yan Qijuan looked at Wu Qi with surprise, then nodded his head thoughtfully and said, "You've learned the Tao of formation from Heaven-Breaking Sword sect as well?" Wu Qi nodded his head reservedly and did not say a word. Zhao Kuo was also looking at Wu Qi with great surprise, then he shook his head. Zhao Kuo had nothing else to say to this big brother of his. Even with Zhao Kuo's intelligence and quick-wittedness, he had only learned the Tao of formation for a short period of time, and then he resolutely gave up on studying it. Unless he was an extremely talented and intelligent man, there was no way he could have a profound attainment in the Tao of formation. When Zhao Kuo saw how Wu Qi constructed the formation so skillfully, and how he could not see through its mysteriousness, his slightly aggrieved heart gradually calmed down. "It doesn't matter if I admit that I've accepted Wu Qi as my big brother," Zhao Kuo told himself in his mind, "be a good man. Since I've already been subdued, I should stop thinking about other things." Apparently, there are many benefits in following him. Xiong Wanling and the other 4 nascent divinity demon kings were trembling with fear. The formation constructed by Wu Qi was emanating an immense coldness. When they carefully examined it with their divine will, they found nothing. Even with their experience and knowledge, they could not tell how powerful this formation was. However, they had a vague feeling that if they were trapped in this formation, they would never be able to get out. The 3 demon kings who were forcibly subdued by Wu Qi bowed their heads respectfully. Just like Zhao Kuo, the last bit of resentment in their hearts had vanished. It was just a formation, but it had changed the minds of everyone present. Yan Qijuan even assumed the bearing of a master, lecturing Tian He and Tian Dao on the spot, "Learn this. No matter what you do, you must always leave a backup plan. Never act recklessly, and never place your own safety in someone else's hands. Only after constructing this formation can we go in and investigate with a peace of mind. Otherwise, if some enemies sneak in after us, won't they be a great threat to us?" Tianju and his sons nodded their heads as if they were suddenly enlightened. They kept bowing at Yan Qijuan, saying that they had learned a lot from Yan Qijuan. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Wu Qi took out a small teleportation formation disc, and mounted a fist-sized spatial breaching spirit gold onto it. Looking at the dumbfounded crowd, he smiled and said, "Let's construct a teleportation formation disc first. I'll bring another one with me. Even if we run into some dangerous place, as long as the surrounding void is not sealed, we can always retreat safely." After placing the formation disc firmly behind a few rocks near the cave entrance, Wu Qi smiled and said, "Of course, I don't think our luck is that bad. There are not many restrictive spells in the world that can seal the void. Our luck can't be that bad." With both hands clasped behind his back, Yan Qijuan nodded with a smile. He was getting more and more satisfied with Wu Qi, his son-in-law. One could say that he was a coward, but it also proved that he was a cautious and prudent man, always leaving himself a way out and a backup plan. Therefore, Yan Qijuan felt at ease leaving Princess Xianglu in his hands. When Wu Qi was done with all the preparations, the crowd entered the cave, which was filled with an eerie cold air. He Qianqiu, who had the fastest speed and the most nimble reflexes, walked at the front, while Wu Qi, surrounded by Xiong Wanling and Supremacy 5 Mountains, followed closely behind He Qianqiu. Yan Qijuan, Zhao Kuo, and Tian Zhu and his sons walked in the middle of the group, while Green Shadow and True Lord Windbreaking brought up the rear vigilantly, ready to provide support at any time. As Tian Zhu said, there was a very long tunnel inside the cave. It was over 100 feet tall and wide, and was covered with a 10 feet thick layer of xianbing. Under the transparent layer of xianbing, countless ice element energy stones were embedded in the thick rocks. Each of those energy stones was the size of a fist, and there were even some rare natural energy stones the size of a water tank. Judging from the quality of these energy stones, each of them was at least a middle-grade energy stone. The natural energy in the tunnel was shockingly strong. As the rich water element natural energy gathered together, the air was rippling with a faint blue gleam, making the group feel as if they were walking in water. The spirit stones in the surroundings emitted a faint glow, and the glow from countless spirit stones converged together, illuminating the passageway. At first glance, the tunnel was very long, extending downward at a 30-degree angle. No one knew where it led to. Wu Qi and his company moved forward at a fast pace. In just 15 minutes, they had traveled over 60 miles, but they still could not see the end of the tunnel. At this point of time, the density of natural energy in the air had reached an astonishing level. Walking in the tunnel, they felt as if they were walking in a sticky glue, as they could vaguely feel some resistance. The amount of energy stones under the xianbing had also increased, and they were getting bigger and bigger. It was as if those energy stones were squeezing against each other on the rocks, forming a tunnel entirely made of energy stones. Tian Zhu and his sons stared blankly at the immeasurable amount of energy stones in front of them, following the group with stiff steps. Their eyes were wide open. Wu Qi smiled and said, "Look, what you found is a deadly tunnel. Even if the few strongest clans in Shui Yuan planet discovered this place, they are destined to have their families destroyed, and all their people killed, let alone Tian clan and Lin clan. Once those heaven immortals know that there is such a bizarre tunnel here, they will definitely not let you go so easily." All of a sudden, Wu Qi leaped out and dashed several hundred feet forward, stopping on a xianbing on the side of the road. Carefully, he dug out a clump of translucent, pale blue Ganoderma, which was emitting an elegant fragrance. The clump of Ganoderma was about the size of a human head, and was composed of 72 thumb-sized Ganoderma. They were stacked layer upon layer, and looked extremely adorable. Yan Qijuan and the others quickly came over as well, fixing their eyes at the clump of Ganoderma. Wu Qi took a careful sniff at the Ganoderma's aroma and gave it a good look. Then, he nodded his head and said, "That's right, this is an 8-9 fragrant Ganoderma, a treasure that can enter the 6th tier among all immortal-grade spirit herbs. It takes 10,000 years for one leaf to grow, and there are 72 leaves here. Obviously, it has lived for at least 720,000 years. After growing 72 leaves, it will no longer grow any new leaves." Turning the Ganoderma over, Wu Qi pointed at the rings of wrinkles under the pale blue leaves and said, "After growing 72 leaves for 720,000 years, one more ring of wrinkles will be added to the leaf after a period of growth. There are 98 folds here. That is to say, after this Ganoderma has grown all its leaves, it has grown for another 98 periods." Zhao Kuo stared blankly at the rare spirit herb, then asked in a daze, "What's the use of this? Can I directly ascend and become a heaven immortal after eating it?" Wu Qi put the fragrant Ganoderma into a cold jade box, shook his head and said with a sigh, "What's the use of this? It is a 6th tier immortal herb, and it is said that gold immortals can concoct pills with it. Anyone below the realm of gold immortal will die if they eat it. Do you want to give it a try? Wu Qi turned to look at Zhao Kuo, but the latter quickly shook his head. In Tranquil Vimla sect, there was a grading system for immortal herbs and immortal pills. 9th, 8th, and 7th tier immortal herbs were spirit herbs that heaven immortals could use, and could be used to concoct various pills without any harm. 6th, 5th, and 4th tier immortal herbs could only be consumed by gold immortals, while heaven immortals would die if they consumed them. 3rd, 2nd, and 1st tier immortal herbs could only be consumed by primordial immortals. Apart from some rare spirit roots of heaven and earth, which were spirit herbs that even mortals could consume, all the other immortal herbs were limited by their grade and overall strength. Everyone's mind began to race. They had just entered this place, and they had already discovered a fragrant Ganoderma of excellent quality. So, what would happen in front of them? Without needing Wu Qi to say anything, all of them stepped on their flying swords and carefully flew forward. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.